Good morning and welcome to our 105th weekly webcast. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. And so the way the call works is this is an AMA, meaning you can ask me anything. You can ask me business questions, personal questions, career questions, etc. And within 24 hours, my wonderful team will have all questions and the times they were asked put in the description field of this YouTube video so you can save time and get clickable access immediately. Now, before I start, I just want to give a big shout out to Philip Germany II. This is the second book that Phil has published with my free templates on how to write a book. And so the first one that he wrote was called Super Students, which is prophetic because I'm a teacher, or I try at least. And it was a book about how to play chess. It was called Super Students. It's on Amazon. It's great. And this one is called Too Strong to Grow Old. Again, it's by Philip Germany II. The 40 and over beginner's guide to strength training to stay young, slow aging, burn fat, and look great. So I'm going to read this. I can't wait to read it. Congratulations, Phil. Great job. Great job. And you can't reverse aging, but you can slow it down. And so I'm hoping to get some great tips in that book. Now, if anybody else wants to write a book, I'm going to provide you with a template right now that you can use to write a book. And many of my students have done so. And when you complete your book, let me know in this weekly webcast, and I'll order it personally. I have to buy it personally because I want to support you over Amazon. But anybody can do it. And I'm going to show you how. And it's free. I'm not asking for your email address or anything here. So if we go here to my website, harouneducation.com/writebook, okay? harouneducation.com/writebook. Then what you can do is you can actually download this book template here. And it's a Microsoft Word document, and there's one page of instructions at the beginning. And this is all you need to know to be able to publish really quickly and for free on Amazon Kindle, as well as Amazon Print and Amazon Audible, which is called ACX. And the only thing you might need to pay a couple bucks for maybe is to get somebody on Fiverr.com to create the cover of your book. And there's this wonderful woman I've been working with for years named UltraCon22. She's based in Bangladesh. If you get her to make your cover, make sure to tip her nicely. I always do. Thanks. And it's really easy. All you do is fill in the blanks. Put the book title here, your name, copyright stuff if you want, dedication. And I wrote this to my mom and dad, who gave me the faith and confidence to know in my heart that you can accomplish anything in life. It's a pretty good one, eh? Okay, my Canadian accent slipped out there. And then all you do is you write the book and you right-click here on the table of contents to automatically, boom, update the table of contents. It's a word called repagination, I think. Can't believe I know that word. So check it out. Anybody can write a book. And if you want to get that dream job, or if you want to get that into a great university, imagine bringing a book with you to the interview. Or imagine bringing the book with you to meet with a potential customer. Who does that? Nobody. And you got to ask yourself, how badly do you want that job? Or how badly do you want to get that customer? Or how badly do you want to get into that university, etc.? Yeah, so congratulations, Philip Germany, and thanks for sharing this with me. All right, first up, I've got Nawali who's saying, hi, Chris. Pratik here. Okay, go by a different name. Cool. Hope you are well, likewise. My question today is, what, according to you, is the biggest problem in the whole world? Yeah. So I think that affordable education fixes every problem. And I gave a TEDx talk on how I think that TEAT, can solve every problem in the world. Technology, education, and acceptance. One of my heroes, Malala, once said, one book, one teacher, one child, one pen can change the world. And I'm reading it because I've got the quote on my wall there. I don't know if you'll ever see it. Let me click here to show you. You can't really. It's right in the corner there. But Malala also said, with guns, you can kill terrorists. With education, you can kill terrorism. And so I think that a basic fundamental human right is free access to, or affordable access at least, to education online. Just like we have freedom of religion, that's right, freedom of political choice in most countries, unfortunately not all, and the freedom to breathe air. You know, we're all in this together. I think everybody should have equal access to education globally. And given the terrible corona pandemic, my vision of the world has been pulled forward 10 or 20 years now with respect to online education. I actually felt really guilty because my sales took off a lot in the month of March. And so what I did was I gave away 1 million free courses. And I had to hire a couple extra people actually to help me with customer support. But we are all in this together. If you think about it, all major diseases in the world can be solved with education, science, obviously. The same thing with poverty. We can obliterate it with educated people that know how to run a country, or know how to run a municipal government, or know how to run a business, or can make enough money to be able to give a lot away to charity and their time as well. I really do believe that capitalism, if done right, can solve all the world's problems. But the crux of my longer-term belief on how to fix the world is to get affordable education online to every single person on this planet. And we can do it. We can do it. We have the technology in place now to provide free internet access using wireless and satellite technologies. It might be a rendition of 7G, 8G, 9G, or 10G, but we can do it. And I think with great power comes great responsibility. And I humbly ask our space pioneers, Elon Musk, Sir Richard Branson, and Jeff Bezos, and many others that love space, to think about putting up low orbiting satellites that provide unfiltered internet access to every person on the planet. And my vision of the world is that you'll have millions of Malalas rising up in each country or each town, whatever it is, and teaching online and changing society from within. Because who are we to send troops overseas to fight a war we can't win or understand? It's not our business. I think society can change from within, just like Malala has done over in Pakistan. And God bless her. God bless her. And for those of you not familiar with the story of Malala, she was shot by the Taliban, actually, for demanding equal rights to education for women. God bless her. And she's the youngest Nobel Prize winner in history. If you get a chance, last thing I'll say on this is do a YouTube search for Malala's speech when she got her Nobel Prize. She's really gifted, and she's certainly my inspiration and one of my heroes. All right, next question is, I'm trying to see if I can get these. I just upgraded to the new version of Wirecast, which is great because it's supposed to allow you to stream to LinkedIn as well as YouTube at the same time. I don't think it's working on LinkedIn today. I blame user error. It's me, not Wirecast's fault. But we will be live on LinkedIn starting next week as well. So it'll be from now on live on multiple platforms. Okay, next question is, what according to you, next question is, are you excited about playing GTA 6? Is it out yet, or has it even been announced? I don't think so. Gosh, I hope you're right. I know GTA 5 is going to be re-released on the PlayStation 5 with badass graphics. It's going to look lifelike, kind of like when people use modded PCs to play it. That game has legs, man. It's been around since 2013. It's unbelievable. And the parent company is Take-Two, which owns Rockstar Games, ticker TTWO. But let's go there together and let's do a quick search to see if it's available yet, or the announcement of GTA 6, because I have not seen it yet, but you'll make my day if that's the case. GTA 6. Let's see here. Oh. Okay, so they're kind of teasing it, it looks like, on Twitter. Whoa. That is awesome. Okay. Oh my God, it's incredible. You have made my day. Rockstar Games, the parent, the studio that makes Grand Theft Auto, they're starting to tell people to stay tuned for updates. Oh my gosh, that'll be incredible. So it probably won't come out until at least the end of 2021, at least. Now there might be a reason for me to get a PS5 or the next version of the Xbox, because software sells hardware. Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that with me. I'll check it out after this call is over. Maybe I should just wrap up the call right now because I can't wait to read more about that. Thank you. But I am very excited about it. Very excited. And I'm jealous of my buddies that have modded out PCs and they play GTA. Offline at least, doesn't work for online because it looks like real life, except for the faces. They haven't mastered that yet, but the cars look dope, as the young people say. All right, next question is, what specs laptop should I have if I'm a programmer? Yeah, so I would say, I don't think that you should do the slim down Surface Pro yet. I know a lot of people are looking at that because it's kind of like a tablet / personal computer. And it's bundled with Windows and Office, etc. I think probably the best thing to do is to look for a PC that's got at least 16 gigabytes of RAM. Processor-wise, I would go a minimum of an i7. That's pretty old now; it's a couple of years old. And yeah, that's what I would say. And obviously get as much storage as you can. If you can, get solid state drive. And I always kick myself because whenever I buy a PC or a laptop, I'm a little bit cheap sometimes with the hard drive. And I could have spent an extra $50, whatever, to get a much bigger hard drive. And then a year after I bought the PC, I'm like, oh my God, I would have paid double that for maxing out the hard drive space. So I would max that out. In terms of screen, you want to look at what's called nits, N-I-T-S, to see how bright the screen is as well. I'm not a believer in touchscreen PCs yet. It gets too messy for me. And I know that's a dilemma that Apple's been looking at as they're trying to turn the iPad into a computer as well. So anyway, those are my humble thoughts. And I recommend if you like multimedia and you're into designing or video editing and post-production, I recommend getting a MacBook or a MacBook Air even. And if you do that, and if you do a ton of Premiere Pro or Final Cut editing, then see if you can get 32 gigs of RAM. Yeah. All right. Okay, you're asking about the brand name. So although I love Macs, I have to be intellectually honest. They are a bit pricey. They are. So what I do like are ThinkPads a lot, which used to be owned by IBM. Which got spun off from IBM along with Lexmark, the printer company, so IBM could focus on software and services. It was the best turnaround in history, done by Lou Gerstner, brilliant man in the 90s. But the ThinkPad is now owned by Lenovo. I love the ThinkPads. They're awesome. They're awesome, and they're robust as well, kind of like the old Toshiba Toughbooks. When you drop them, they take a licking, but keep on ticking. That's a Timex commercial. I'm old. Yeah, I don't know if anybody gets that. I dated myself. Yeah. All right. And the next question is, do you think the economy and gross domestic product of countries will go up next year? I actually do. And here's why. It's because we've had such a severe recession this year in many countries that the year-over-year comparisons are quite easy. So, for example, in the United Kingdom, GDP, which is revenue for a country we know, GDP went down 20% in one quarter year over year. So that means that the comparisons next year are a lot easier. They're easier comps. So things are slowly getting back to normal. I just saw that New York City just announced that they're going to open restaurants again, which is great because I do worry about regions in the world where they really rely on customers coming to their stores in the winter. And the rule has been in New York and here in California currently that if you have a store like a salon, unless you're not Nancy Pelosi, okay, I'm going to stop the politics now. If you have a store here on the West Coast, people aren't allowed to come in and sit down. You get your hair done outdoors. They have tents. And also for restaurants, you eat outdoors on the streets. They've closed a lot of streets here in California where I live. Now, it is sort of sustainable, sort of, if the weather is good. But in places like New York, where winter is coming, I feel like this is a Games of Thrones episode, it's frightening because you obviously can't have too many seats outdoors in the winter unless you have hockey lights like we had in Canada growing up. Yeah. So things are getting back to normal for New York and many parts of the world, thank goodness. But the year-over-year comps will be easy. And let me segue now into why companies do big acquisitions and the danger of doing big acquisitions. So sometimes companies stop growing, and the only way to make shareholders happy is to buy other companies. And what happens is when they buy other companies, revenue goes up a lot, and people are happy because year over year revenue up a lot. But then what happens is 1 year later, revenue might go down because it was a one-time blip when they bought that company, and the year-over-year comps get harder, which is the inverse of what I was talking about with GDP next year. And the problem with that with big companies is they have to keep acquiring, so it doesn't look like organic or real growth, whatever, is negative. And so there's been a lot of software companies that have done this. And Safra Catz, who was the brilliant CFO at Oracle and a great former investment banker at DLJ, she kind of set this in motion for Oracle. So Oracle, a big software company, obviously, they bought PeopleSoft in 2003, got approved in 2004. Then eventually they bought Siebel, which is a customer relationship management software company, on September the 8th of 2005. I remember that well. And they also bought Hyperion, which is a business analytics company, Sun Microsystems, BEA, middleware software, NetSuite, etc. And it's great that they own all these assets. However, investors know that organic growth, like real growth for Oracle, is not as amazing as it used to be. And it's not their fault. They're like a big country, like the United States. You know, the United States will never grow revenue-wise or GDP-wise more than a couple percent every year. It's just the law of large numbers. But it can be quite problematic when you become a serial acquirer because Wall Street expects you to keep buying in order to make revenue continue to grow. And it's tough from a culture perspective. Last thing I'll say on this is that as much as I criticize Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, I think he's actually done a great job when it comes to acquisitions. And so Zuckerberg, his philosophy is when he bought WhatsApp or when he bought Instagram back in 2011, he leaves them as standalone companies on their own and allows them to grow organically for 5 or 10 years before even thinking about incorporating it into the mothership, Facebook as is. Like a lot of people didn't realize Instagram was part of Facebook until recently when they rebranded it a Facebook company. But I think that big acquisitions can destroy innovation if you try to quickly incorporate that company into all of your operating divisions. You got to let it grow independently. Otherwise, bureaucracy sets in. Yeah. All right. And let me just change the air conditioning here. Dude, it is crazy here. Yesterday, if you walked outdoors here, it looked like you were on Mars. The sky was orange. It reminds me of that U2 album, Under a Blood Red Sky. It was brutal. And the reason is because for the first time since 2005, we had a lightning storm here in California a couple weeks ago at 3:30 in the morning on a Sunday. And as a result, it's scary because fires were started north of me in Napa Valley and south of me down in Woodside and inland as well. And they're trying to contain the fire. It's been tough. And 1.25 million acres are on fire now. It's awful. And the same thing with Washington State. It's happened to them, the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And as a result, the air quality is just terrible here. It's manageable for now, but it's getting worse. And outdoors yesterday, everything was orange. It was eerie, man. It felt like a post-apocalyptic world for a second there. It felt like Mars. So anyway, hopefully things get better. And what a year it's been. Is it over yet? All right, Ray is next. Ray is saying, hey, Chris, thanks for being here for us again. My pleasure. Thanks for coming. You guys are my customers. Thank you. And you wrote here are my questions. Why do some professions require much longer hours than others? For example, in investment banking and law. Yeah, that's a great question. It's a great question. And a lot of my buddies, when I was younger at McGill University, they went to New York to work in investment banking. And I remember they made $40,000 a year, and I was like, oh my God, that's all the money in the world. Because at the time I made just under 20K. working at Accenture. But then what I did was I calculated the number of hours that my buddies were working as investment bankers. I'm so sorry, that was accidental. And yes, they work 100 hours a week, and they actually made less than I did per hour because I had a 40-hour, per week job. And there's people say it's glamorous as well. I just don't get the glamour of that. And when you're an analyst or a new hire at an investment bank and you're younger, you're basically creating PowerPoint presentations, updating models, whatever. It's very administrative. There's nothing glamorous about it. If that's something that you're passionate about, then do it. Now, why is it that people go into investment banking at all? Well, if you're confused with what you want to do career-wise, the best thing to do, some people say, is to work in an origination job where you're actually making the product. Because if you make the product and you don't like making the product, but because you understand how to make the product, what you can do is you can sell the product or trade the product or market the product or work in operations for the product. So that's investment banking. You could start there and then you can go into many other finance roles. Origination within the tech sector means you work in R&D or you're a programmer. And so at Google, for example, there's this, no one talks about it, but it's like this caste system. Maybe that's too strong a word, actually, where the engineers are here and everybody else is down here. It is what it is culture-wise, and I do respect Google a lot. I think what Sergey did by pulling out of China is the smart move. Yeah, they're a good company, but if you work on originating the product, or you work in Google Labs, where every product's in beta for 8 million years, just kidding. But if you decide you don't like originating the product or working as an engineer creating the product, then what you can do is you can move into marketing the product or selling the product or managing people on the project or work in operations. The same thing with consulting. If you're confused about what to do after you graduate school, if you go into consulting, you're creating the corporate strategy, and it makes you more marketable to be able to leave because you've created the product, the strategy, and you can leave to sell the product, market the product, work in operations on the product, etc. And so a lot of people are confused what to do out of undergrad. The bottom line is a lot of them take an origination job, like investment banking, consulting, or programming. But you got to do what you love doing. Yeah, you got to do what you love doing. And I used to ask myself, why the hell can't they just hire more people? Like, it's ridiculous. Do they really need to have people working 100 hours a week and miserable because they don't have great family lives, etc., and they're not in the best shape because they don't have time to exercise? Why don't they just hire more people? I just don't get it. And one of the reasons is that there might not be enough people out there in the world that can do that sort of profession. The same thing with law. And this really hit home for me when I was in Tokyo and I met with the CFO of Nintendo back in January 2006. And I worked at a big hedge fund called Citadel at the time. And I was really excited about the Wii product, great product cycle, and the stock did great, ticker 7974 on the Nikkei. But I asked the CFO of Nintendo, I said, why don't you make a new Mario game every year? Like, why is it we have to wait 5 or 10 years to get a new Mario game? You know what I mean? Like the great ones, like Mario 64, Mario Galaxy, Galaxy 2, Sunshine, or Super Mario Sunshine, I think it was called, and then more recently Odyssey. Why don't you make one every year? And the CFO told me, he said, Chris, there's not enough people in the world that are good enough at creating games like that. And so we have to resort to what we have. We can't keep hiring. It's not scalable enough. There's not enough great programmers. And those programmers that make the Mario games, they're so damn good that we use them to also make Zelda games, Pokemon, Pikmin, which is really underappreciated IP, I love it, as well as many other titles. And he also mentioned that, think of it like it's Walt Disney. If Walt Disney only made Mickey Mouse movies or Donald Duck movies, then from a product portfolio diversification perspective, they would be at risk There's too many eggs in one basket, too much IP in one product. And so they have to take their programmers at Nintendo, their game designers, and have them work on different IP or intellectual property, different characters. And they're brilliant about repurposing content as well. I'm sure you all saw the announcement that there's going to be a 3D package that's going to be released that has 3 games in it that's only available for a limited amount of time, including Mario Galaxy Sunshine, and then also Mario 64, which is best game ever. And without that open world games, Mario 64, GTA wouldn't exist. That's right. But they're repackaging it, and it's brilliant. And when you do social media, you have to also think about repurposing like Nintendo does. So I do this weekly call here on YouTube, and then I repurpose it by creating 7 vlogs for the week that drop at 9 a.m. my time every day. I repurpose this product here, this weekly call, by creating 7 vlogs for the week and 3 Instagrams and a bunch of LinkedIn posts as well. And that's what Nintendo does as well. They repurpose their content, which is brilliant on their part because their fixed cost is done. They've already created the games, and they're just re-releasing the games on new platforms, which drops immediately to the bottom line because distribution, for the most part, is digital. All right, next question is, can you stop courses on Udemy, and what happens after that with the students and their questions who have bought it before you stop it but continue to ask questions? No, so if the question is, am I going to stop making courses on Udemy? Only if I die. I'm going to do it forever. This is my passion. I love doing what I'm doing. It's fun. But if I were to stop, I would keep supporting students, obviously. I'm never going to stop. And a company is only as good as its customer service. And from an educational Darwinism perspective, if I don't answer questions on Udemy and really treat the student like the customer, then what happens is Darwinism kicks in and my ratings go down a lot. And if my ratings go down a lot, my course doesn't sell. That's just the way it works, yeah. And the great thing about Udemy as a platform is that there's a lot of competition. There are a lot of teachers that teach business courses that are way better than mine. And competition is great for the consumer, which is the student. And we're all in this together. Okay, next question is, if I have 1 month free and I would be doing sports that I'm not good at and spending time outdoors and learning new things in different spheres, but how can I monetize that? Yeah. So if you mention that you're not good at sports and you don't see a career in that area, you can go into sports management. If your favorite football team is Manchester United, you can network and get a job there or an internship in the back office or front office even. And the best way to do it is to network aggressively. And anybody can do it. Your network is your net worth. And what I recommend doing is downloading my free networking book, which you can get on my website, which is harouneducation.com. And it's free again, and it's a couple hundred pages, and it will teach you everything you need to know about networking. So you can get the job of your dreams right here. And there's links to a couple hours of videos as well. I promise you it works. Relationships are more important than product knowledge. A lot of people, myself included, when we're younger, don't realize that. And we figure if we just do a great job, that we'll get a promotion and a raise. It doesn't work that way. You have to network and ask for things in life. So that's what I would do when it comes to sports. Regarding the outdoors and wanting to monetize that, I mean, there's so many industries that haven't been disrupted yet that are in the vacation or outdoors sector. It could be tours. There's no quintessential platform for vacation tours online and booking vacation tours online, for example, or exploring the great outdoors. So there's a market for that. There's a market for everything. And so I think you can monetize what you're passionate about by just thinking differently about it. So again, with sports, if you don't think you can actually make a professional sports team, I certainly can't and could never. I always want to do the Olympics, and maybe I'll do that later in life. We'll see. Just kidding. But there's other ways to figure it out. You can work in management for a sports company, for example. Yeah. All right. And then Ray is asking, what will be your typical day during weekdays? Yeah, it's pretty hectic, but I love doing what I'm doing. I run a million miles an hour. When I launched this MBA degree program about a year ago or last December, I love challenging myself, but I felt like, and this is going to sound out there, but this is just embedded within the DNA subfabric of who I am. I felt like I was looking over a cliff and I threw a bunch of airplane parts off. And then I jumped and I have to assemble the airplane before I land. That's the challenge I've had this year with this MBA degree program. And I say challenge it in a great way. And by the way, if you're interested in applying, just go to my website, Haroun Education, and check it out. We've had a lot of fun this year, but it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of work. I've already done hundreds of hours of live Q&A with my gold and platinum students. So there's a lot to it. And the core curriculum's over 300 hours as well. So it's been a pretty crazy week. In terms of when do I teach live? So for my gold and platinum students, I teach every Monday and Tuesday in 2 time zones. I teach every Monday and Tuesday from 9 till noon plus Q&A. And then also every Monday and Tuesday from 4 until 7 plus Q&A. And the reason I chose those 2 days is because I asked my wife, Christine, and I certainly want to spend as much time as I can with these kids because you can't get that time back. But I asked my wife, I said, should I do it on Fridays? Should I do it on should I do it on Saturdays? And she was right. She said, well, absolutely not. You got to think about balance. And so I said, well, what days do you think would be great? And she said Monday and Tuesday, because those are the days that my kids usually, do a lot of homework, Monday night, Tuesday night, etc. So that's what I do Monday and Tuesdays. I teach live. What I do is I also, as I'm preparing my courses and writing my 6 or so average of new hours of new content every week for the MBA degree program, what I do in order to keep my sanity is I love to multitask. And I have a treadmill underneath me here. I'll show you. Got my pedals messed up today. So it's right here. Okay. So these are the pedals I'm pushing down here. It's kind of like a keyboard. You just map keys. But what I do is, this is like a Michael Bay production. I actually click this table goes up, I move the chair over, and I start taking steps. And I'm doing about 20,000 steps now per day without even realizing it. Without even realizing I'm taking steps. And you have to multitask as well if you want to accomplish all of your goals. And if you don't treat this right, this does not work correctly either. So I get my 20,000 steps in that way. And I have weights in the corner there. You see those little dumbbells, whatever. I'm a small guy, whatever, but I have that, and I work out with my son Andrew, who's 16, in the garage every single day, usually around 1 o'clock. So I do that. I get to bond with him as well, which is great. And then Wednesday and Fridays I'm recording or writing new content. And so what I did yesterday was I recorded a class that I'm going to be teaching my MBA degree students on Monday, my platinum and gold students, and silver too. I'm teaching them on how to create videos from scratch and how to use Final Cut Pro from scratch and Premiere Pro from scratch. Anybody can do it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So I recorded that lecture yesterday. I'm going to write another lecture tomorrow and record it on Saturday. Sunday is always family day. Always, always, always. So that's my typical week, but I spend times with my kids every single day, especially at nighttime. I put this dude to bed, say prayers. I'm still cool enough to hang out with him. These guys, a little bit less so now. They're a bit older, but it's great having them home. When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, and this COVID situation sucks. However, I've really been able to bond and reconnect with my kids in ways I never thought I could before. Yeah. Okay, the next question is, if you want to develop in 2 directions, do you think that writing a book using a pseudonym is a good idea in order to not let the topic of the book harm your professional image? Yeah, a lot of people have done this. There's Richard Bachman, that's Stephen King's name. He did that as well. And a lot of people have stage names as well, and pen names. I guess you could. Like what a lot of people that come on this call, I know who they are because I've gotten to know them over the past 105 weeks. but a lot of them use different names. So different YouTube accounts because their boss or their employer or whatever or their colleagues might see them ask a question because this is all in the public domain. So you could do that if you wanted to. I don't know what the legalities are around that. You might want to contact legalzoom.com, which is $15 for half-hour call with any lawyer you want. And I'm not selling out to anybody ever, by the way. But you might want to check that out from a legal perspective. Yeah. But I did that too. Like I know what you're thinking. And when I worked for other people, I actually started many companies on the side, many. And what I would do is I would advertise using Facebook and other social media platforms in regions of the world where I didn't know that many people. For example, Pakistan. I would test my products overseas that way to see if they would materialize. And I'd never pay for any ads on YouTube or Google AdWords, whatever, on the coast of the United States. Like never in New York or San Francisco, because I know a lot of people on the coasts. So I might advertise in the North or Central America or the southern states, for example. Yeah. And also I remember when I used Fiverr even to get people to do stuff for me, I would never use my real email account. I'd use another email account I've had for years, and nobody can tell it's me. So I did I did keep it hidden. And if you're ever thinking of leaving a company to go to business school or whatever it is, don't tell anybody at your firm you want to do that. You know, even if you have really good friends there, just I want you to be paranoid. You know, DTA, don't trust anyone. And the reason I say that is because if you let people know, and your boss, whatever, at your company that you're thinking about leaving to go back to law school or business school or whatever it is, although they'll sound like they're supportive, the issue is if there's ever a time to let people go, and if each manager is asked to let one person go from each team because of restructuring, and companies tend to cut into muscle and not just fat, they overfire and they overhire. But if that ever does happen, then you might be let go because your boss might think, well, this person's going to leave anyway. Yeah. All right, next up is there something that you cover in your course but not covered in your MBA that's not covered in, yeah. No, we go into way more depth, and there's a hell of a lot of new content as well. You know, I do teach accounting and finance in a bunch of courses. So of course I'm going to teach it in an MBA degree program, but I teach it a different way. You know, I'm pushing myself to teach it more visually with lots of props as well. And with all my courses, similar to my MBA degree programs, there's a 30-day, 100% money back guarantee. And for the silver version of my MBA program, which is $499, it's a streaming only version. But the price of that is literally the price of 1 hour of doing an MBA at a traditional decent school, if you incorporate room and board, lost wages, etc. Yeah. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Next question is, do you follow any particular YouTube channels or podcasts? Yeah. So I don't follow specific YouTube channels. Like every now and then I'll do a search for Trevor Noah and I'll watch his brilliant talk show from home. So I don't think there's any one particular that I follow really. No. And then in terms of podcasts, yeah. So I used to listen every week to my favorite podcast is This Week in Tech. That's TWIT. This Week in Tech, and it's this brilliant man that lives not too far away from here. Named Leo Laporte, and for about an hour and a half to 2 hours every week, he talks about really fun new consumer trends in the tech sector. So I guess this weekend he'll probably talk about GTA 6, which Rockstar Games just tweeted might be coming out soon. So he'll talk about fun stuff like that, or the next release of the iPhone, whatever it is. And it's a great way to multitask too, because you can listen to those podcasts while you exercise or while you commute. You got to use your commute. So yeah, but I started listening to podcasts in July of 2005 when Apple first released them, and I had my old iPod, and I used to drive into work then at 4 a.m, here in San Francisco because I worked Wall Street hours and I had to get to work an hour or two before the market opened, whatever. But on my drive in order to maximize my time, I would listen to the Wall Street Tech podcast and the Wall Street Journal General podcast. And they were both 5 minutes at a time. I'm not sure if they're that length now, but that would give me a nice 10-minute overview of all the business and finance news I need to know while I'm commuting so that when I get to my desk, I can hit the ground running. Thanks. And then you wrote here, hope you and your family are doing well. Thank you, likewise. All right, the next question is exchange traded funds with dividends. Is there a way of pulling up all from Canada and comparing them side by side, meaning fees, dividend amounts, etc.? Thanks. Yeah. So there's a handful of companies that dominate the ETF space, and ETF, for those of you not familiar, stands for exchange traded funds. It's kind of like a way to invest in many stocks by buying one fund without paying crazy high fees. And 90% of mutual funds underperform ETFs and indexes, and the fees are way higher. It's a scam. It really is. So ETFs allows you to invest with very, very low fees, usually way under 1% per year, unlike mutual funds with all the hidden fees and taxes can be 5% per year. And there's an ETF for everything. And so the companies that dominate that sector include Vanguard, which is probably my favorite one. And you can go to their website and read all of their prospectuses and do a search on Canadian ETFs. Another one is iShares. And then you also have Schwab. Talk to Chuck. Charles Schwab has that as well. And there's Van Eck, and there's a couple others. But there's an ETF for everything. And the way to do your research is as follows. So once you find the name of an ETF, you can go to Yahoo Finance. And please don't ever pay for any finance software or like Bloomberg or Motley Fool to give you advice on what to pick. I want you to do your own research always. And if you want, you can do a search on my name and Motley Fool, and you'll see my thoughts on that on YouTube. All right, so you can type in ETF for anything. So let's do the SPY. So that's the S&P 500 ETF. And what this means is you can invest in this ticker, SPY is a ticker, and own all 500 stocks that represent the broader US markets. And the top 10 holdings are right here. Okay. So 6% is Microsoft, then you got Apple, Amazon, very tech heavy. The Google parent companies here, healthcare company, J&J, Berkshire, which is kind of like an insurance company now for Mr. Buffett, 90 years old, still going strong. Visa, which is headquartered here in Procter & Gamble, which is in Cincinnati, Ohio, which of course is consumer products. Now, when you look at it, you also have to make sure that it's liquid enough. And that means that you can get in and out quickly if you need to. And certainly this is very liquid. It trades 80 million or 77 million shares per day times $340 or whatever it is. Very liquid. And you always want to be able to get in and out in one day if need be. Although I think you should be a long-term investor always. Next up, what we do is we look here at the profile. And this is where we'll get the fee from. And so the fee here is quite low. It's 0.09% per year. Amazing. Amazing. Unbelievable. Now, in terms of Canada, there's EWC, which is an ETF for Canada under iShares, which I mentioned. And so this one here, it's liquid. The average volume is 2.6 million shares times $28, very liquid. In terms of the fees, it's usually a little bit higher because it's not as liquid. Let me go actually to profile fees. I'll show you here. Yeah, the fees here is 0.49%, which is decent, but higher than the SPY because it's less liquid. In terms of the holdings, it's Canada, so it's very natural resources rich, the economy, and there's 6 main banks. So right here, you can see the breadth and depth of this index. It's financial services is a massive component. And then you got basic materials and cyclicals and energy, which are all commodity-based because Canada is a natural resources-rich economy. And technology is getting bigger because of Shopify, which is so great to see, man. I love it. I'm from Canada originally, yeah. And then you can look here at the holdings. So Shopify now is the biggest component there. Wow. And then the Royal Bank, TD, a railway company, a pipeline, etc. Yeah. So this is where I would start your research. Yeah. All right. Next question is from Dario. Dario, I hope you're doing well. Every time I see your name, I smile because I went to business school at Columbia with a guy. His name was Dario. I think he went to IMD in Italy and then came over. And it was back in the 90s. And he was joking around when he said, "It's me, Dario." Yeah. Which, of course, is from an old, great Nintendo game. And so Dario is saying, "Hi, Chris. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and for your great courses. A couple of years ago, I've attended your first version of the MBA program. It was very helpful. Thank you." And then you said, "I wasn't born in the rich part of Italy. And if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been exposed to so many important topics." Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And then you wrote, "This year, I wanted to sponsor one candidate for your MBA course, but due to COVID-19, I can't. I would appreciate doing it ASAP." Yeah. And then you wrote, "Thank you for being who you are." Okay. Thanks, Dario. I appreciate it. Tell you what, I don't see most of my emails or LinkedIn messages. I'm flooded now with them. But send me a LinkedIn message and tell me what course you want. And I'll give you 1,000 free coupons to give to people you want to give to. Yeah. But again, send it to my LinkedIn address and I'll search for your name and I'll provide you a coupon with that. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Okay. And then next up, Kundan is saying, "Hi, Chris. Hey, man. If you're young again, which industry would you like to start your career again in? Tech or finance?" Yeah. So I'm passionate about both. So I've always loved technology and I've always loved finance. So it has to be a combination of both. And everything I've done, and obviously education I love, but everything I've done has touched upon both. So when I went to undergraduate university, I majored in management information systems when I did my business degree there. Then I went to Accenture, where I was in the financial services technology consulting department. And I worked on the merger of Nations Bank and Bank of America in the Carolinas. I went down to Barbados to set up an offshore bank for CIBC, always on the tech side. Then I went to business school and I majored in finance at Columbia. Then I went to Goldman, then eventually Kingdon, Pequot, Citadel, hedge funds, where I was, of course, doing finance stuff, but for tech stocks. Then I started my own companies, my own hedge fund, my own venture firm, and it's always involved finance and tech. The one element that was missing in my life, the trifecta, was teaching. So teaching, tech, finance. Those are things that drive me and get me out of bed every single morning. And by the way, these are bears, or these are bulls for bull markets. And I bought this on Etsy, actually. There's this amazing Israeli woman that makes these things and ships them overseas. Yeah. And then next question is, what industry do you like more, tech or finance? I would say tech. I mean, I do love finance, but I am a nerd. I always get the newest tech products, like this one here, which is garbage. Don't get it. The battery runs out really fast. But I have to drink something hot because I talk all day. This thing is called a Mural, Meural, made by Netgear. It's a digital post or whatever that doesn't have glare when you're looking right onto it. I clearly make a ton of mistakes with all this tech stuff I do in my office. I've got pedals down here below. I'm always trying to push the goalpost out by leveraging technology. And I always believe in hiring fewer people and spending more money on tech, because I think that a couple of girls or guys in a garage can change the world with the right technology products and the right mindset as well. And so I nerd out a lot. I love this stuff. I live for this. I live for this. It's fun for me. Yeah. All right. Next question is from Chimnadum, who's saying, "Hey Chris, I just want to say thank you for the entire MBA in one course." Oh, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. That was a fun one to make. Yeah. Okay. And then next question is, can you give me your email? So I don't give my email out, and I actually don't even open most of my emails. I get tons of them. I don't even answer my phone anymore. So I think the best way to reach me is always right here Or if you take any of my courses or MBA degree program, you can always ask in the course. Yeah, thank you. Okay, next question is Harvard or Stanford? God, that's a tough call. Oof. Probably Stanford. Harvard Business School, 2/3 of HBS is BS. Just kidding. Sort of. Probably Stanford. Probably Stanford, yeah. It's just lifestyle is, I like it a little bit better. Yeah, I'm not going to say much more about that, but yeah. And I do guest lecture a bunch at Stanford Business School, and I love the students as well. All right. And dude, I have friends, and as a joke, I always think to myself and talk to them, and I'll say this to them, dude, I know you went to Harvard, but I'm just curious. How many minutes into a conversation with a new person you've never met before, how many minutes does it take you to tell them you went to Harvard? Yeah. And I think that a lot of people that get into these elite universities, you know, a lot of them worked hard, yes, and they earned it, yeah. But a lot also go there because of who their parents are. And it's disgusting. It is, because you're taking away an opportunity from somebody else. So why is it that extraordinarily wealthy people have their kids going to the best universities? You know, genetically, are their kids the brightest? I don't think so. Maybe, sometimes, yeah, sometimes they can work hard. But this whole idea or notion of legacy, so that your kids get in, is bullshit. It's not fair. It's not fair at all. And that's the type of elitism that I'd love to get rid of in this world. You know, and think about all the wealthy people whose kids go to great schools, and then think to yourself, how did they get in? Did their parents donate money? You know, did they hire somebody like we saw with the USC scandals to lie that their kids were on the rowing team, etc.? You know, I don't think that legacy should ever determine if somebody's going to get into a university, because it's highly unethical and it's not fair. And we have to level the playing field as well. Yeah. Next question is, India just reported negative 23% GDP growth recently, which shook the entire country. Yeah, it's terrible. And the United Kingdom, I think, was 20 even. And then you wrote, and here the politicians are just giving excuses by saying it's an act of God. What's your view on this? When can India come back? So the year-over-year comparisons are going to be easy next year for every country on the planet. So every country is going to grow next year because GDP growth was ridiculously negative this year. So the year-over-year comparisons are easier. So there will be growth next year. You know, it's I'm an optimist. I think things are going to get better. And even if it means we just live with COVID and we all work remotely, we can still be productive working from home by leveraging technology. So, yeah. So I think India will bounce back next year, along with every other country as well. And if you're watching a replay, right now it's September of 2020. They'll bounce back because the year-over-year comps are easier. Yeah, there's no way you're going to see negative GDP growth next year. And I'm bullish on India. I love India. It's the world's biggest democracy. I'm in love with that country. I love it. And for those of you who have never been to India, if you can go, please do it. And when you're there, just observe how peaceful and loving everybody is there. Even in Mumbai. Like I went to Mumbai, a company sent me there to give a speech. And there's like 25 million people in Mumbai. And we drove through the slums. And you know, a lot of people are poor there, but there's also tons of very wealthy people. And it changed me, that drive. We're going from the airport to the Ritz-Carlton, or I think it was the Four Seasons. And during that drive, I looked at the people that lived in the slums, and they're so happy. You got nothing to lose. They're just happy and not material at all. And then I went up to Delhi to give another speech on the same trip. And there were cows and monkeys just roaming around, and there was such a joie de vivre and a love for life and respect for life as well. I love it. Yeah. Okay. Next question is, can you talk about proprietary firm? So you're gonna have to give me a little bit more details than that, please, with respect to what that means. If it's a law issue, an intellectual property issue, I'm not the best person to answer that question because I'm not a lawyer. But please just provide a little bit more detail so I can humbly answer your question. Thank you. Okay, next up is Yuki, who's saying, hi, Chris. Hope you and your family members are well. Thank you, likewise. What would be great options as remuneration for advisors? Yeah. So when you start a company, you can get people to be on your board or board advisors. If it's a board of directors or board observers, that's a legal thing. And you have to make sure you get a lawyer to draft the paperwork for that. And this goes for everybody else. Don't ever join a board and be on the board of directors without getting what is called D&O insurance. And D&O insurance stands for Director and Officer Insurance. And the reason is because if something bad happens at the company, you as a board member can get sued personally. Now, you don't pay for the D&O insurance yourself. The company always does. So make sure that you seek legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. Now, when it comes to remuneration for advisors, I don't think you should pay them. You know, for publicly traded companies or massive private companies, if you're on a board, yeah, you get comped. You know, a lot of CEOs, they retire from big companies and they serve on a couple boards a year, each making $100,000 from each board. But for a private company, if it's just an advisor, I wouldn't pay them. I wouldn't pay them. Just take my complete job course, which will teach you how to network aggressively to meet with potential advisors, because relationships are always more important than product knowledge. Yeah. And if anybody comes up to you and says, I will help you raise money if you pay me, don't do it. It's always BS. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So I wouldn't pay advisors. Now, if it's a consultant coming in to do a temporary consulting project, that's a different matter. Yeah. Okay. And speaking of, and you mentioned here, it looks like you got a private company there you just started, and it's hard to find resources to get a retainer to bring people on as advisors. So the way it works in venture capital and early stage investing with angel investors, you don't get paid to be on boards or to be board advisors. You know, you invest in the company, and then you have a fiduciary duty and a fiscal responsibility to your investors to find out how business is progressing. You don't get paid to sit on that board. All right, next question is from Kundan, who's saying, do you think sales and trading roles at investment banks or hedge funds is more valuable? Because if we leave our job, we can still trade on our own, but investment banking skills don't really come in handy after retiring. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. So I don't believe in trading. I believe in being a long-term investor. And there's a ton of very successful long-term investors like Warren Buffett, George Soros, etc. And we can't name a single trader that's been successful year after year after year. They don't exist. If you know their name, please tell me, because they don't exist. And I think if you trade stocks, it's like going to a casino. And the worst thing that can happen is you go to a casino and you make money the first time. And you think, oh my gosh, I can replicate this. One data point doesn't make a trend. And the same thing with trading. Worst thing that can happen to you is you make money the first time you trade, because you can't replicate it in the long run. It's not sustainable at all. And so there's a great book written by Nassim Taleb called Fooled by Randomness that you should check out. And it talks about how people, especially in the financial markets, quite often, they make money or lose money for reasons outside of their control. What's in your control is if you do a ton of research on a company and you become a pit bull on a pork chop and you don't rent the stock, you're not a tourist, you're a long-term investor, you can do that work. However, if you want to trade stocks, each month has 20 weekdays, which means 20 trading days. And the reason stocks go up and down within 20 days is usually for reasons outside of your control or has nothing to do with the company, like geopolitical events or healthcare crisis, or saber rattling between, I don't know, Beijing and Washington, or Riyadh and Moscow, or a company in your sector that's similar to the company you're investing in, has reported earnings and either beat earnings or missed earnings. It's too hard. There's just so much random crap that can occur. So I believe in what the sage of Omaha, Warren Buffett, has been preaching forever, which is, the longer the view, the wiser the intention. Be long-term focused. And the best companies are long-term focused as well. Like when I worked at Goldman Sachs, they used to always tell me to be long-term greedy. Just be long-term focused. Yeah. So I don't think that trading is a skill that you can have as a job full-time. I promise you it'll end badly. It'll end badly, yeah. Now, when it comes to sales is a great skill because every entrepreneur or great business person or CEO have one thing in common, is they can sell. That's what a CEO is. That's what a partner at a law firm is, or a venture capital firm. They can sell. So, the measure of a great entrepreneur is, are they a great salesperson or not? So I think sales roles are awesome. And I think that early in your career, if you can get a sales role, that's awesome because you're being trained how to be an entrepreneur. Okay. Next up, is blockchain the next big thing? Many people say that talking about blockchain in 2020 is like talking about apps in 2005 or 2007 or websites in the 90s. What's your view? Will it be a boom? I think so. Now, I made a course which is more than 24 hours long called the Complete Cryptocurrency Course. And you can go to my website to learn more or go to Udemy or search my name because I made 6 hours of that course free on YouTube. So check it out. And I do talk a lot about blockchain and how to mine cryptocurrencies, etc. And when I first started making that course, and I'll answer your question about blockchain in a second. When I first started making that course, I was 7 out of 10 positive on cryptocurrencies. And by the time I was done, I was a 3 out of 10. And I realized, based on my deep due diligence research and the 6 months of me working day and night making that course, I realized that most cryptocurrencies are a scam. There's a handful that are not. And I'll tell you what I own, but I'll never tell you what to own. But I've owned, and my disclosure is great. Transparency builds trust. So for me, I've owned the following 4 cryptos. I'm never ever selling them. Bought them years ago. Bitcoin, Litecoin, which is like Bitcoin's little sister, little brother. Ripple, which is the financial services cryptocurrency, and the founder lives around the corner from me. And then Ethereum, or Ether, ETH. Ether trades on the Ethereum platform. And Ethereum I've liked because of the blockchain. Okay, and so blockchain, for those of you not familiar with it, it's a way to kind of have secure transactions. And when people mine new cryptocurrencies, they get a reward. And every time they mine a new cryptocurrency, it's kind of like when you break your arm, you get a cast, and then your arm's actually stronger afterwards than it ever was before. And so with blockchain and with mining cryptos, it actually makes the infrastructure security stronger in the long run. And it's driven by capitalism, which is a beautiful thing. But instead of just using a blockchain for cryptocurrencies, like you see with Bitcoin, for example, which is the first notable crypto out there, you can use it for other things, which is what the Ethereum platform is all about. And so it's not just for transacting in the Ethereum crypto or Ether crypto, for example. It's about storing other stuff online in a secure manner, like elections data or legal contracts. Think of everything you do with DocuSign and think of that as being replaced or augmented with blockchain in the long run. But yeah, I am bullish on some cryptos in the very, very long run, but I'm also very skeptical because it's not a regulated market. And I know a lot of people say, well, Chris, that's a good thing. You don't want governments involved. I think you do want governments involved because governments regulate markets to the extent that people don't get ripped off because they're elected by the people, for the people, etc. And so whenever you buy a stock in the United States, for example, governments regulate it, and those companies that are on the stock market, they have to disclose many, many things to you and all investors at the same time, like an 8K, which is a press release for an important event like earnings, or a 10Q, which is a quarterly report, or a 10K, which is an annual report. And to go public, you create an S1 document, and you can get all this stuff for all companies in America, at least, on sec.gov. In different countries, it's called different things. In Canada, it's called CEDAR, for example. And the wonderful thing about regulation is that governments make, and I believe in less government, by the way. I'm libertarian. But I do believe in regulation of financial products because governments protect you by making these companies disclose all the material risks in the investment offering memorandum. And if they don't do it right, they can get sued and they can go to jail even if they mislead people. So don't ever invest in anything without first reading the investment offering memorandum or legal docs, and hire a lawyer as well to take a look at it if it's going to be a big percent of your net worth that you're going to invest. When it comes to cryptos, though, it's hard because they have white papers, which are 9 to 15 pages in a PDF, which kind of outlines the technology infrastructure of a crypto. But there's not much more regulation. There's not much regulation out there. So, and I think it's a double-edged sword too, because governments are terrified of cryptocurrencies because every government's biggest power is the ability to print money and to sell bonds, which is a way to raise money for the government. And when they do that, when they sell bonds or buy bonds back even, they're changing the interest rate, making it go up or down. It's just supply and demand. And if you take that power away from governments, meaning the monetary policy power, if you take away monetary policy power from governments to be able to raise money that way, to fund bridges, not walls, wars, etc., they can't survive. And if people want to only own cryptos and not own US dollars or whatever currency it is in their country, the fiat currency, paper currency is, if people only want to own cryptos in the long run, then governments will lose power. It's a good thing to keep all governments in check. I believe in a Senate, which is like a sober second look. But we kind of need like a Senate for cryptos out there. Or some agency like the Better Business Bureau that will kind of bless cryptos or kind of like what auditors do, like KPMG or Deloitte, etc. They'll kind of bless the financials. There's got to be some sort of certification process. There has to be a business model out there for that. Kind of like how the big investment banks have analysts that will give their ratings on stocks, buy or sell and why. And there's no third-party service for that yet. Like there's no ethical Yelp for that yet. So hopefully, if and when it does emerge, it will help you be able to do some research on cryptos and not get ripped off. Yeah. But it's dangerous, though, because if you make money on a crypto and you put it into another crypto and you lose money on that, you can lose a ton in taxes. And for more details on that, just do a search online on my NBC interview. I was on the television, NBC, giving my humble thoughts on cryptocurrencies and taxes. Yeah. All right. Next question is, hey, Chris, hope you're doing well. Likewise. What is the general work of a software product manager? Yeah, everything except for coding. It's kind of like that. It's a little bit more generic. They'll kind of work on helping the company to go from the tech phase to being sold. That's it, and marketing the product as well. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up is, can you shed some light on management roles in the technology industry and what skills does one require to be considered for such a role? Yeah. So I would say one of the biggest problems with the tech sector and the finance sector is if you're a great programmer, people think, oh, you can now manage people. And in finance, if you're a great investor, a great trader, whatever, you can then get promoted and manage other people. Some people just aren't cut out for managing. Some people are not team players, and a lot of people are sharks, and that's how they get to the next level. Not all people, obviously, but a lot of great programmers might be really good at programming, but doesn't mean they should get promoted and manage people. The same thing in finance as well. And you see it all the time on Wall Street. Traders or investment bankers that made a lot of money for the firm, they're then promoted to manage other people. Doesn't mean you're a great manager at all. So, but in general, I would say in the tech industry, in order to be a great manager, you have to learn how to incentivize people, get people to work together as a team, foster a great team-based culture environment, and motivate people as well. And just be a positive person, like a coach. Just think of, I don't know if you guys watch Friday Night Lights. Great show. It's on Netflix. But there's a coach that's played by Kyle Chandler, one of my favorite actors. And he motivates the team as well. And he has compassion. So a great leader is like a great coach. They motivate people. They push the goalpost out, so to speak, and they make sure that everybody plays together as a team. And TEAM stands for Together Everyone Achieves More. Okay, next question is, which is a better career path to take, accounting or finance? Yeah. So I think that in order to do finance, you have to understand accounting. So let me tell you the difference. So accounting is backwards looking. It's a science. You look at what's already happened, and you create financial reports like an income statement, which tells you how much money you made or lost. Then you create a cash flow statement, which tells you how much cash you really made or lost. There's differences because the income statement's a lie. It doesn't tell you how much cash you're getting in your pocket because there's non-cash expenses like depreciation, etc. Then there's the balance sheet that tells you what you own and who owns your stuff. That's accounting. That's backwards looking. That's a science. You need to know accounting in order to do finance because finance is more of an art. It's forward looking, where you're predicting the future based on accounting statements. So I don't think you can be amazing in finance without first understanding the basics of accounting. And accounting is one of the things in business that's not common sense. Like you have to learn it. It's not like marketing or managing people, whatever. You really have to learn those skills. And for me, I got a D in accounting. And you're thinking, why the hell are you teaching it then? Well, I got a D in accounting when I was at McGill University. I'll never forget, I was at my parents' cottage up in Collingwood, the summer of 1991. Damn, I'm old. And I called Mars, which is McGill's automated registration service, to get my grades for accounting. And the woman, it was a recording, a computer said, your grade in accounting is D. Ha 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 ha. Actually, didn't laugh, but you know what I'm getting at. And I thought my life was over. I was hungover then. I remember that. We had a great party the night before. I thought my life was over, man. But I got a D because I was memorizing accounting. And you can do well in high school by memorizing stuff. But once you get into the real world or university, you can't excel by memorizing stuff. You have to understand it. And I was memorizing accounting, ratios and all this other stuff, and I didn't really understand it. I took it again, and I did get better than a D. Not that much better, but I did get better than a D. But you gotta really understand it and enjoy it. And now I enjoy financial statements, and I can read them like a good book. And I know that's nerdy, but you gotta condition yourself to understand why things are the way they are. Don't just accept the fact that, well, it's got a low PE, so in finance that means I buy the stock. Really understand that. What is price to earnings? It's a ratio, the price of the company divided by earnings, which means for every $1 on the denominator in earnings, how many times that $1 are people willing to pay for that company? So if it's got a PE of 20, that means for every $1 the firm makes, people are willing to pay 20 times that $1. And in accounting, why is it called a balance sheet? Because everything you own is owned by you or somebody else. What does that mean? Well, let's say that the only thing that I have in my possession is this book, okay? And I own half of it, and the other half is a bank that I've got a loan from that pay for this book. So everything is owned by you or somebody else or a government agency or a company. So assets, my asset, this is my asset, equals liabilities plus equity, okay? So say this book is $10 and I own $5 of it and the bank owns the other $5. So a balance sheet has to balance. So this asset of $10 is owned by the bank, $5 with, that's a liability, plus equity, meaning my ownership. 5 plus 5 is 10. It balances. I have equity in this. So always question why things are called what they're called, and do research on the history of each thing as well. Like I love learning about why things are the way they are, which helps me to understand finance much, much better, in accounting, as well as software. Like when you're editing in Final Cut Pro or in Premiere Pro, just doing post-editing work, really understand why things are called what they're called. Why is it called a blade? Because in the old days, they used to get film and they used to cut it with a blade. You're like, oh, that's what that icon means. You know, same thing with cars. It's interesting. This is a little bit off topic, but interesting nonetheless. With a car, why is it called a trunk? It's called a trunk because in the old days, people used to put a real trunk on the back. Okay. Why is it called a glove compartment? Well, in the old days, people used to wear gloves when they would drive. Then they put their gloves back in the glove compartment. The one that gets me is when it says the door is ajar. I always thought it was a door. I'm sorry. I've gone this entire webcast without one dad joke. Okay. It's done. No more dad jokes today, I promise. Sort of. But don't do finance or accounting if you don't enjoy it, right? What a miserable existence it is to be an accountant or work on Wall Street if it's not fun. If you're just chasing money, you'll lose your money and your dreams. But if you chase your dreams, as long as you're willing to fail at least a couple times and don't give a damn what people think of you, if you chase your dreams, eventually they'll come true and the money will follow accidentally. That's right. It always does. It always does. You know, Elon Musk doesn't do what he does because he wants to make money. He wants to change the world, man. You know, he wants to fix the environment. He wants to colonize Mars. Yes, it's out there, but he doesn't give a damn what anybody thinks. You got to think with this, and then this will work much, much better. Just follow your heart. Okay, next question is, and by the way, if I miss any question in between, just post it again. Thank you. I read everything that's written here, yeah, in order. How did you decide the topic of your books, and how long did it take you to finish writing one? Yeah, thank you. So you got to write what you're passionate about. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And you have to say, I don't care if nobody's ever going to buy it. I don't give a damn. And if you look at J.K. Rowling, as well as C.S. Lewis, as well as John Grisham and Agatha Christie and many others, they were rejected a gazillion times each until finally an editor or publisher said yes. You got to be that dude that just never gives up, that pit bull on a pork chop, but write about what you're passionate about. And all those four aforementioned fiction writers, they love fiction. They love what they're doing. Do what you love doing. Write about what you want to write about, and it will sell in the long run. It takes time, though. It takes time. And it might take you your second or third book, whatever, until it starts selling a lot. But you just got to write about what you're passionate about. And for me, my first book, that I'm humbled to say Forbes wrote about it, saying it's one of 6 books all entrepreneurs need to read right now, along with Peter Thiel's book, Good to Great, Covey, etc. But my first book, I wrote it from my heart. And I wrote it because, and it's called, by the way, 101 Crucial Lessons they don't teach you in business school. I wrote it because it seemed like business education was BS to me. And a lot of the stuff they taught I never used. And they didn't teach me the most important stuff in business, which is the crux of my MBA degree program and all of my courses online. It's why I do what I do. I'm passionate about what I'm doing. And I found that making very, very short chapters was easier for me. You know, it's kind of like reading a Roald Dahl book, like James and the Giant Peach, right? Each chapter was short and you feel like, oh, good, I'm accomplishing something. So, and plus, you know, people don't have the same attention span they have now that they used to. But I just, and the way I got it done, and by the way, I don't have a publisher, and I've been called by Obama's publisher, the publisher that publishes books, and they said, we want to publish your book and take it to the next level. No, I don't want to give up ownership. Plus, if you do that, you only make $1 a book and they own the content forever. And they raise the price. Screw that. That's not me. I don't care. That's not who I am. But you have to set a deadline date too. Because if you don't, if you're writing, you're like, I'm going to write a book, it might never get done. You gotta vocalize it. You gotta tell your buddies and your family, I'm writing a book. And every time you see them, they're going to say, how's that book coming along? You're like, oh God, now I got to write it. But you got to provide a deadline date as well. And it's interesting because 90% of people give up on their New Year's resolutions by the third week of January. And one of the reasons is because they actually don't set a deadline date. You got to set a deadline date for every big goal you have. And you got to tell other people about it as well so they can hold you to it. In terms of how long it took me to finish the book, that one took over a year, maybe longer. I can't remember. I would just write down ideas every now and then and throw it on my iPhone until I had enough to throw in a Microsoft Word. Yeah. All right. Next question is, how can one stop worrying? So I believe in what Dale Carnegie says, which is you need to live in day-tight compartments. And he has this great book you should read called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And living in day-tight compartments means you don't think about the past because you can't control the past. And don't stress too much about the future because most of your worries will never materialize anyway. Just focus on today, man. You know, smell the roses. Have fun along the way. You know, my kids are going to be gone in a nanosecond. I can't get that time back. So I'm going to focus on enjoying that time today. And Sir Winston Churchill, he had this great quote, which I'm going to butcher, but he said, I once knew a man who on his deathbed talked about all the worries he had in his life, none of which came true. And the last thing I'll say is this, and this is personal for me, but I don't worry about anything in business ever because God already knows what's going to happen. And that puts me at ease. And if you worry too much, it's like you're questioning your faith. Don't worry. All right. Next question is, do you think Wall Street is still worth it to work for in 2020? Yeah, there's a lot of talk that New York is on the decline, et cetera. I don't buy that. I think New York is always going to be an amazingly vibrant city, and New York has always bounced back and always will, no matter what anybody says. In terms of Wall Street in general, I mean, Wall Street's kind of it is a bit of an old school term. Like, you don't actually work on Wall Street. Yes, there is a Wall Street, and there's a bunch of companies that are on that street. But because of technology, you can kind of do that job anywhere, anyway. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. But in terms of New York as a financial center, I think it's always going to be relevant. Always, yeah. All right. Next question is from Mohammed, who's saying, hey, Chris, hope you're well. Likewise. My question, is the MBA program in your site accredited by the Supreme Council of Universities? If not, is it certified elsewhere? What is it? Thank you. Yeah, I get that question a lot. No, I'm not going to do it. I've thought about it. I've thought about it really, really hard, even recently, actually. But I'm not going to do it because the problem with universities is they're all subject to regulation by boards and government agencies that make sure they teach stuff that's not relevant in the real world. There's a problem with education. And I only teach stuff that can get my students up and running immediately. I don't teach any BS theory. It's all practical stuff. And you get a 30-day, 100% money back guarantee. Now, if I were to make it accredited, I would have to jack the price up. And I've looked into it. I have one of my employees that's done a lot of work on it. If I did it, the price would have to be jacked up to an insanely high number, and I can make a hell of a lot more money. But F that. I'm not in this for that. I'm in this to make a difference. And some BS standards body is going to charge me, a couple grand per student per year just to be able to bless my degree. That's not what I'm here for. No. I won't go down that path, because I think that accreditation is one of the big problems with education anyway. I believe in accreditation for medical school, of course, but other forms of education, I don't need some government body to tell me what I can and can't teach. Yeah. And you'll love it. You'll love it. Or your money back. And I put my reputation on the line. My name's on the degree, so to speak. Yeah. All right. Next question is from Gaurav, who's saying, I want to contribute towards green energy by following Elon Musk's footsteps. Do you see any growth prospects as far as mobility is concerned? Yeah. E-mobility. Yeah. You'd have to clarify that a little bit more, please. Yeah. But what I'll say about clean tech is you got to be careful. And in venture capital and in the public markets, I've invested in a ton of clean tech companies in every sector you can think of. Even the publicly traded ones, First Solar, when it went public, FSLR. But a lot of us got burnt, especially around '08, because a lot of these companies were very CapEx intensive. And without government subsidies, a lot of these companies wouldn't exist. And so what happened was in 2008, a lot of countries, before '08, they'd offered amazing incentives, which is a wonderful thing to do for solar. And then there was a crisis, a financial crisis in most countries. And so countries like Spain, for example, they got rid of most of those subsidies and the industry blew up. It was awful. It was awful. So if you're going to do, so from an ethics perspective, yes, I'm very pro-environment. I have solar on my roof. I do a hell of a lot for the environment. Absolutely. But from a business perspective, just make sure that whatever you're investing in is not ridiculously CapEx intensive. Yeah. Because it can't scale as much. And make sure it's not just reliant on government incentives. Because I believe in corporate Darwinism. The strongest companies survive. And a great example of the antithesis of this is, so there's this great professor at Harvard Business School named Michael Porter. And he came up with the Porter 5 Forces framework that consulting firms use. And when I worked at Goldman in 2000 or so, maybe it was 2001, I worked on the Japanese equity side. It was fun. And Michael Porter published a book then called Can Japan Compete? And I bought it and gave it to hundreds of my clients. I got to write that off. Goldman paid for that, not me. Thank you, Yumiko. Yumiko Murakami was my boss then. Yeah, she's awesome. And Colin Stewart. But the book is fascinating because it basically analyzed the Japanese economy. And what happened was, after World War II, the Japanese economy was obviously disastrous. And so what the government did in Japan after World War II was they created incentive programs, and they gave a lot of money away to every sector of the economy to help them grow. They gave money to every sector in the economy except for 2 sectors: autos and consumer electronics. And there's a ton of very successful Japanese auto companies and consumer electronics companies, and other sectors too. But more so, they're very, very successful in those 2 sectors. Very. And it just goes to show that Darwinism does work, from a capitalism perspective. It's like, who'd I bet on? The kid that grew up with a silver spoon in his or her mouth, or the person, and they feel entitled, or the poor, starving student that was given a crappy set of cards in life but's willing to work their ass off. I would rather put my money on that poor, starving student, which is why I do what I do. Next up, question is, Chris, can you tell us something about your hedge fund? Will you start again someday, a fund or something? Also, do you think young people should start a private equity or hedge fund now? So my hedge fund, it was a focus on tech stocks and cyclical stocks, industrials. And the reason I set it up that way is because the correlation between cyclical stocks, commodity stocks, machinery stocks, etc., and tech stocks is quite low. So it was a way for me to mitigate or decrease volatility in my hedge fund. Will I start it again? Never. So in '08, I remember October, for example, '08, I did exceptionally well. I made money, whereas the markets were down like 30% that month or whatever it was. And I came into work every day hoping that I would make money. But the only way I would make money is if banks declared bankruptcy and people lost their jobs, because I was short the world. And what an awful, embarrassing, miserable, unethical existence that is. And it didn't feel right to me. And it was so short-term focused. I hated it. And so I became more long-term focused. And in my fund, I started buying private companies. I owned actually part of Facebook, actually, my fund. So I kind of turned it into a venture capital firm. And then I worked in venture capital. I like VC better because it's longer term focused. But I think the whole hedge fund industry is a scam. I think there are some hedge funds that do great, but I think there's a hell of a lot of criminals in this space that make money because of insider information. I'll never sell out and be unethical like that. I've seen my buddies go down that dark path, and I've gone to visit them in jail, actually. You know, everyone else ran away from them. I run towards people when there's something bad happens. But yeah, greed is a disgusting thing. And I think that a lot of the very successful hedge funds out there, I won't name them, but I think there's a lot of criminals there that just haven't gotten caught yet. Because you can't make money. Now, hedge funds that are long-term focused, you know, it's not criminal. I'm sure they do great things because they're long-term focused, like Julian Robertson's firm Tiger and all the Tiger Cubs, meaning the firms that came out of Tiger. And then you wrote here, do you think young people should start a private equity or a hedge fund now? Yeah. I wouldn't do a hedge fund unless you can lock up capital for 5 or 10 years, which is impossible. And the reason I say locking up capital that long is because I want you to think long term. You know, there's nothing worse than trying to invest and make money every month. Each month has 20 days and random stuff happens that pushes your portfolio up or down. Private equity is a little bit different. Private equity, basically, for those who are not familiar with it, private equity means you can buy companies that are publicly traded, take them private, fix them, and then take them public again. Or buy private companies that aren't run well and make them run better and then sell it for more money. So I think I have a lot more respect for private equity firms. But before you start, you got to get a track record first and make sure you have enough credibility. And don't ask yourself how, ask yourself why. Why do I want to do this? If it's just to make a lot of money, you're not going to be happy. Don't do it. You got to be passionate about it. All right, next question is from Fabio. He was saying, hey, Professor Chris, hope you are doing great as always. Likewise, same to you. Thank you. How do you know if a candidate is passionate, as everybody can say they're passionate or interested in something? You can tell. I mean, when I sit down with somebody and interview them for my company or previous companies I've worked for, if it feels like they're interviewing for a job, it's not going to work out for them. They have to light up and just absolutely love what they're talking about. And you can read body language as well. If they light up like a Christmas tree or Tweety Bird or a light bulb, whatever, when they're talking about something, then they're passionate about it. And I really believe in hiring slowly and then firing quickly. And I never fire fast enough. It's just who I am. But I believe in hiring very slowly. You know, like get them to kind of intern for 6 months, get them to be a consultant initially, and you'll see them in all aspects of life that way too. You know, every day of the week, weekends, on a Saturday, whatever, under stress. You know, and I love to have people interview with every one of my employees in different settings multiple times. And if they don't come across as passionate in all of those interviews, it's basically a 6 months interview, then they're not a right fit. Yeah. Next question is from Fabio, who's saying, I want to ask if after having paid for the gold version of your MBA degree program, it would be possible to pay the upgrade and get coaching sessions with you as in the platinum version. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When you apply, and you can go to my website for more details, HarounEducation.com. When you get in, you can decide if you want to do the gold or platinum. And after you start, as long as there's not too many people in the class, it should be easy for you to be able to upgrade as well. Yeah, and just pay the difference. Yeah, and I'll remember your name if you want to do that as well. But it all depends on demand. Like I won't be able to have 8 gazillion students doing it. Next year, I'm going to have a hell of a lot more time though for one-on-ones because I'm not going to be creating content on Wednesday, Friday, Saturdays. You know, I'm just going to be teaching on Monday, Tuesdays. So I'm going to have and Thursdays is my daily call for one-on-ones in the general session and other stuff. There'll be a lot more time for me to serve you, my customers. Yeah. All right. And thank you for your interest. I appreciate it. Next up, Kundan is saying, Elon Musk partnered with NASA to extract gold from an asteroid worth 10 quadrillion. If I'm not, wow. Okay, I didn't know that. And you wrote, wow. That's more than the whole world's gold. Does that mean the value of gold will be zero? I didn't know about that. If that, in fact, is true, sounds like a science fiction movie. Like Dune, the Spice Wars. If that is true, then of course the value would go down. It's all about supply and demand. So I'll give you an interesting example. So I love baseball cards. It's how I got to started investing in stocks. I'm passionate about baseball and baseball cards. I love it. Always have. But what happened is there's this one card, which is the T206, which is in the early 1900s, a card from Honus Wagner, who was a great player. And in the old days, you could only get baseball cards in cigarette packs. And the reason why they created the baseball card industry is because in the old days, cigarette packs were soft packs and the cigarettes would bend. But if you put a piece of cardboard behind it, like a baseball card, it wouldn't bend. And so the Honus Wagner T206 was the most coveted card because there weren't that many out there. Then a couple of years ago, some dude up in his attic found a ton of them. And the price actually went down or didn't go up as much. The baseball market is booming right now, right? There was a moronic card sale the other day, a Mike Trout card for a couple $1 million because only one was ever made. So it's all about supply and demand. And the value of the Honus Wagner cards has massively underperformed the melt up recently in baseball cards. It's all about supply and demand. So what does that mean with respect to your asteroid? Well, if more gold is found on that asteroid than all the gold that currently exists on this planet, and if it's the exact same metal, meaning no deviation, then of course the price of gold will be zero. You know, as long as it's cheap enough for them to be able to mine it from space. I love this conversation. I love your question, dude. It's fun, man. And so, like, if you look at Canada, natural resources in Venezuela. So Venezuela has the largest reserves, underground, of course, of oil on the planet. A lot of people don't realize that. Way more than Saudi Arabia. And Canada has a ton in the middle of the country in a place called Fort McMurray. However, that oil is heavy oil. It's like tar sands. And it's really expensive to mine that oil and get it ready for market, to the extent that it will cost like $80 a barrel. So I can't see them extracting all that gold from that asteroid unless it makes sense to do so, right? Meaning they can turn a profit on it. Yeah. But that's interesting. And if you have more details on that, please paste it here in this discussion because I'd love to learn more about that. I love science fiction. Yeah. Yeah. All right. And my latest show I'm watching actually is on it's on HBO, and it's called Raised by Wolves, and it's awesome. It's really really good. Yeah, yeah. It's science fiction stuff. All right, next up, I got Ramon. Ramon is saying, "Hey Chris, hey, I think I found what I'm really passionate about, and that's strategic management. I just realized that whenever I'm given substantial management freedom, I tend to enjoy making the company better on a strama level, strategic management. Oh, cool. I never heard that term. I enjoy employing management tools and theories. Though this might be a different approach from your more practical approach, I know that your wisdom and experience would still greatly improve my skill on the field." Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Appreciate that. So I do use some frameworks. So, for example, I will use the Boston Consulting Group matrix when I teach. I will mention the SWOT analysis framework every now and then: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Because it's a great way to crystallize your thought process and analyze companies. In fact, if you're in an interview and you're stumped and you have to think about how to answer a question correctly, you might be able to buy time by saying, well, let me apply the SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. In terms of the strengths, I think that this company should do blah, blah, blah. Moving on to the weaknesses, yada, yada, yada. In terms of the opportunities, and lastly, the threats. And while you're saying that, you're actually thinking of what the answer could possibly be. Yeah. So I do believe in having some frameworks if it's going to help you from a practical perspective, as long as they're not too theoretical. All right, give me 1 second, guys, please, because what just happened is every now and then it will jump on me. So in order to find where I'm supposed to go, I'm going to go here and do a search on NASA, NASA, because I remember answering that question. There it is. Good. I found it. Good. Okay, great. All right. Next up, we got Jose. How are you, man? Dude, I'm so happy to hear from you. Jose is one of my amazing platinum students in my MBA degree program, originally from Venezuela. He worked in the oil rig market for ages. He knows a hell of a lot about the energy sector. He's a great guy as well. He currently works in the payment industry, and he has his own payment processing company, which is doing very well in New York. He lives in Brooklyn. And the last time I talked to him, I was worried about you. And we talked about in our one-on-one how once winter starts, it's really going to hurt a lot of your customers in the payment market, restaurants. In New York City. But I read yesterday that New York is now opening up restaurants again, so people can dine indoors ahead of winter. And I smiled because I thought of you, and I thought about how great that's going to be for your business. Yeah. Okay. And thank you, Jose, for understanding my Michael Phelps joke this week. I don't think anybody else did during class. Thank you. All right. And then Jose is saying a quick question: what's the main feature that makes day trading so appealing for the public? And what would you recommend for someone who's looking to start at it? Yeah. So I would say that people love shortcuts, and shortcuts can get you in trouble. It's like my dad told me when I was younger. Great advice. He said, Chris, don't ever take a shortcut you've never taken before when you're in a hurry. And I think everybody on this webcast knows what I'm talking about. You're late to a party or a meeting, whatever. So you take a shortcut you've never taken before to get there faster. And you end up being way later than you would have been if you took the regular route. So get rich quick schemes end very badly. It leads to bubbles and people chasing stocks or investments that go up a lot. But if you chase an investment and try to make money fast and you buy something everyone else loves, who's the incremental investor to push it higher? There's not many. You got to be long-term focused. And one of the analysts that worked for me years ago, Yeah, my hedge fund, great guy, Jason. He used to say, Chris, I don't know the path, but I know the destination. You can't control the volatility. Otherwise, you become fooled by randomness. Each month has 20 trading days, 20 weekdays. Stocks go up and down, usually for reasons outside of our control. Geopolitical reasons, or a company in the sector that's similar to your company you invested in might have positive or negative news. It's just too hard. It's too hard. And since the beginning of time, there's been, snake oil salesmen and people that have tried to make a quick buck. It doesn't work. As Warren Buffett said, the longer the view, the wiser the intention. Yeah. And I would, Jose, I would tell your friend, and you wrote here, my friend is obsessed with day trading and I want to give him advice to go for value or long-term investment instead. Yeah. So tell him this. Tell him or her this, your buddy. So we can all name a lot of great long-term investors, like Warren Buffett, and Sir John Templeton, etc. There's tons of them. People that are long-term focused and made a fortune. Ask him this. Can you name one person that's been successful for more than just a couple of months as a trader? Who is that person that's been the Wayne Gretzky of trading, or the Michael Jordan of trading for the past couple decades? What's that person's name? That person doesn't exist. And any platform that tries to help you make money or tell you that you'll be able to make money by trading on my platform, whatever it is, that's criminal. It's criminal because you'll be fooled by randomness. The longer the view, the wiser the intention. Always great to have you, buddy. All right. Next up, Andrew Dupree's on the call. Andrew, how are you? Andrew lives in Toronto. He's the inverse of me. Because he's an American living in Canada. I'm a Canadian living in USA. And Andrew actually was the very first, he's a great guy. He was the very first person accepted to my MBA degree program. Yeah. So you're number one in my books, buddy. Great to have you. Next up, Melody Johnson. Melody, I hope you're doing well. Melody is a teacher from the great state of Georgia. She lives in Atlanta. She teaches in class, and she also just put up an awesome course on Udemy as well. It's great to have you, Melody. So Melody wrote here, hi, Chris. I hope you are having a great day. I am actually, thanks. The air quality is getting a bit better right now. Yesterday outdoors, it was like Mars. Like the color was like this, like orange. And this is a book. One of my students wrote this book recently, Phil Germany, great guy. But it was brutal, man. I really felt like I was in that Matt Damon movie when he wanted to science the beep out of something to get off the planet. That's what the sky looked like, blood red sky, to quote Bono. The air quality is better today, but what a foobar year, man. Just messed up. Yeah. But the bright side is that next year is going to be much better. It can't get much worse. Yeah. And it reminds me of a quote from a guy I used to work for at a hedge fund years ago. Smart guy. He was very unemotional about stocks, and that's why he did well. But he said, Chris, things are never as bad as they seem, and things are never as good as they seem. And it didn't make sense to me at the time, but now I kind of understand it, where he's coming from. You got to tune out the media, because the media is breaking news, the world's ending, whatever. Yeah, things are awful. But, there are some green shoots emerging. Things are getting better. Next year is going to be an amazing year relative to this year. And it's all relative. Yeah. But think about that when you invest in stocks and companies too. Just to ground yourself. And when I say yourself, I'm talking about me as well. Things are never as good as they seem. Things are never as bad as they seem. Just be unemotional. And it's killing me that this here is not perfectly centered. I have to angle it a bit. Otherwise, you see the glare there. You see? Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. Salvador Dali, the great artist, once said, if you strive for perfection, you'll never reach it. He's right. All right. And these wires here, man, I can't hide them from that camera angle. It was killing me before, but I'm not perfect. I'm comfortable with imperfection. It's all good. It's all good. All right. And then Melody said, I'm homeschooling and working on a social studies course for Udemy. Awesome. I'm also working on a math class. I'm trying to figure out how to give more value to my audience at this time. Yeah, no, it's smart. It's smart. Yeah, yeah. And then you said, which site would you recommend? Oh, I'm sorry, that's somebody else. Okay. Oh, that's it for Melody. Okay, great. No, good for you. That's awesome. That's awesome. It's rough. Like my kids, like schools aren't open. Here are my three boys behind me, my three sons. Schools aren't open here. It might not open until next year in California. So the bright side is that I get to bond with my 16-year-old. And by the time and this is the 16-year-old, a bit older now, the dark blue shirt, Andrew. By the time your child is 12 years old, you've already spent 90% of the time you will ever spend with them. And you can't get that time back. And I get to spend time with my 16-year-old, which is fun. It's fun. Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. Next up, I got Ramon. Ramon is saying, I find it burdensome that a lot of small business owners find strategic management a burdensome and unnecessary task. No wonder why most businesses fail early. Yeah. Well, I think one of the main reasons that businesses fail is because they didn't plan accordingly. Failing to plan is planning to fail. And most people don't write a business plan. They just kind of jump in and hope it works, like throwing spaghetti at a wall. Hope it sticks. I don't know where that saying came from, but whatever. But I really do believe that you need to write a thorough business plan first, a 50 to 100-page business plan, which I teach about in my business plan course and in much more detail in my MBA degree program. And without doing it, you're hurting your family and your health. Because starting your own company is one of the most important decisions you'll ever make. And the quality of life for your family might be adversely impacted if you don't do your due diligence, and your health as well. It's stressful at times. And so think about writing a business plan as like the Senate when it comes to government. It's a sober second look, reality check on should you start this company or not. And I think you should write, and when I say you, I say all of us in general, I think that we should write mini business plans confidentially on the side while you work for other people. And launch it on the side. And if you make more money in 6 months than you do from your salary for a whole year, then it's a no-brainer to quit your job. But you got to write that business plan first to make sure that it makes sense, what you're trying to do. Yeah, I mean, people take their car in once or twice a year to get serviced, and they'll go for a health check as well, maybe once every couple of years. And they don't do a checkup on their business by writing a business plan before they launch it or while they're running it. I think even if you have a business that's up and running now, you should still write a business plan because it's like rudimentary goal setting as well. And it lets you kind of see the forest from the trees as well. All right. All right. And then Ramon's also saying, I'd like to also share a quote from Sun Tzu. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Interesting. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. Interesting. Yeah. And Sun Tzu, of course, from the book, The Art of War, also said every battle is won before it's been fought, which I believe in. And if you write a great business plan, you've already won the battle because you've planned accordingly. And the most brilliant chess players like Kasparov or army leaders like Patton, etc., or Schwarzkopf, whatever, or Napoleon, they did a hell of a lot of strategic planning ahead of time. Yeah. All right. Shubham is saying, I hope that you and your family are safe with the current natural disasters in the Bay Area. Thank you. And then you wrote, thank you very much for helping us out each week. You're amazing. No, thank you. God bless you. I appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah. Let me see if I can show you guys what it looks like outdoors. Let me see. I'm going to get this camera angle here, and I'll turn the camera, see if I can do it. Hold on a second. Yeah. So let me see. Let me actually show you. Let me open the window first, and I'll show you outdoors. All right. It's better today. It's a lot better, but I'll show you anyway. Hold on. Let me get this camera angle. Yeah, I'll turn it. But it was orange. Like if I opened my door window yesterday to this, or the door, I would see orange completely. So let me turn this and show you outdoors. It's a little bit yellowish. Kind of tough to see. Yeah. But that view yesterday was completely orange. Completely orange. So let me go back to here. Should be good. All right. All right. All right. Next up, I've got Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer. First time I've seen you on the call. Welcome. I hope you join us again. Jennifer is saying, what site would you recommend for short-term stock trading? And then you wrote, thanks for showing us how to publish a book. Yeah. So I don't think there's any one website that I'd recommend. However, if you want to look at charts, they're a dime a dozen. They're all the same. So when I analyze companies, I look at fundamentals first, then valuation, and then technicals. And I only look at technicals last to understand where I should buy a stock. And I love to, as Warren Buffett said, be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. And I love to buy broken stocks, but not broken companies. And my favorite stocks to buy are ones where the fundamentals are great, but the whole market is selling off. And I see it as an opportunity. And most people sell stuff when it goes down. It's crazy. Warren Buffett said, the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. Think about that. So they're all the same, though, when it comes to trading. And I'll show you quickly here. And I'll show you what to look for if you want, just because you're the customer and you've asked. Although I don't believe in trading. So just go to Yahoo Finance, type up the ticker of anything, Tesla, I guess. And then what you can do is go to a chart. And within this chart here, the indicators that people look for from a technical perspective, usually you look at the RSI, which stands for the Retail Sales Index. I mean, the Relative Strength Index right here. It just tells you when something is oversold or not. So red here means it's oversold. Traders would buy. I'm not telling you to buy or sell something because I don't believe in trading. But 20 means you buy. Green means you sell. Okay, and basically it's mathematical for too many people have sold the stock or too many people have bought the stock. So red, buy, green, sell. All right, so right here, I'll scroll in here. So that would mean here, red, on August 31st, you sell, okay? And then if it gets down to here, you buy. So what was happening on the 31st? And it's, yeah, so up here, around here, you'd sell. But it's BS, though, really, because it's voodoo. It's not reality. It's not fundamental based. The reason it sold off is because they didn't get included in the S&P 500, which is another matter. But generally speaking, that's what people look for. So down here, it's oversold. You see this here? So the RSI down is red down here, that red line. Okay, oversold, you buy. And then overbought over here is where you sell. Okay, but please don't just use this. I want you to look at fundamentals first. And then you can look at valuation and then fundamentals last. Yeah, so I'm sorry, and then technicals last. And other things you can look for on any finance website is you can look at moving averages, like the 50-day or 200-day moving average, and is it holding those levels or not? But please, please, please be long-term focused and focus on fundamentals first, valuation second, and then a distant third, technicals. Yeah. But when stocks I own are massively overbought, like they just go up way too fast, yeah, I'll take some profits. I will. I'll sort of trade around a position, but it's kind of a distraction for me. I love to just, buy and hold, or if you haven't done the work on it, buy and homework, so to speak. Yeah. All right. Next up, we've got Amar saying, hi, Chris. Hey, Amar. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining us. And Manas is saying, good morning, my dear mentor. Good morning to you as well. Thank you. And thank you for all the social media support. Appreciate it. Oh, here's John Clee. John, you are awesome, buddy. So John is, and I hired John a little while ago to do some work with me. And then I called him and I said, okay, we're done with the work for now, because I didn't have any more work to do. And he was so awesome on that call. So awesome. And I sent him an email the other day saying, can I hire you again? Do you have any free time? So I value our friendship and everything you've done to help me out. And I'm looking forward to working with you. And I'll respond to that email soon in terms of other stuff for you to do. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And John, for those of you who aren't familiar, is from Rochester, which is in New York State on the Northeast United States. He's a good guy. He has a family business. And I got to know him just through this weekly webcast. I think it was probably week number 30 or something. And I remember your name because you asked me, who's your favorite comedian? And so whenever I look at your name, I think of John Cleese instead of John Clee, your name there. Yeah. And so John is saying, hi, Chris. I suggest everyone watches The Social Dilemma on Netflix. Very eye-opening about social media and persuasive technology. I'll check that out. Thank you. Let me take a little screen print of that. Thank you, because I really value your opinion. Hold on. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. And if you guys get a chance also, if you haven't seen The Truman Show, check it out. It's an oldie but a goodie from 1998 with Jim Carrey. It's a serious movie, but it's about a perverse future where social media gets out of hand to the extent that somebody's life is, the purpose of somebody's life is for people to watch them grow up, and they don't realize that they're being filmed. It's a brilliant movie, way ahead of its time. And there's the most incredible soundtrack to it as well. There's one song called Truman Sleeps. It's just piano. It's a little dissonant, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So check out the soundtrack as well. Yeah. And then next up, Emily is saying, yes, you're so right. Education should be affordable. Amen. Absolutely. Absolutely. We're all in this together. Okay. And Amar is next up. What do you think about using EDX, edX, and Coursera for education and building new skills quality-wise and affordability-wise? I haven't really, it's a strange thing for me because I work in this industry. I haven't really done much work on them. But I think for the most part, it might be just traditional universities offering their courses on those platforms. And I think they're part of the problem, not part of the solution. Because traditional universities teach theoretical stuff you can't apply in the real world. And it's a big pain point. And it's why I do what I do. You graduate from business school, for example, and you're not taught how to sell or how to interview or how to raise money or how to manage your own money. You're taught how to manage other people's money. So the most important skills are not taught in university. And people will do a 4-year undergraduate degree, pay $100,000 in some countries. The debt is terrible. And there's 13 hours of class a week, and they graduate not knowing any skills they can use to pay the bills. The exception might be medical school, whatever. But I think the days of educational elitism are behind us. And I love the fact that a lot of companies don't require a university degree anymore. For example, Google, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Facebook. Who else is there? There's a couple other, IBM as well. IBM, one of the oldest companies ever. So you don't need a degree to reach your full potential in life. You just have to have the ability to network aggressively to get what you want to get. And I've got a free book on my website you can download. It's a couple hundred pages. I promise you it'll help you to get anything you want in life. So go to HarounEducation.com, scroll down. Here's the book here. It's a couple hundred pages and a few hours of clickable YouTube videos. And it will teach you how to network to get a job, customers, or anything you want. And the sooner that we all realize that relationships are more important than product knowledge, the better off we'll be. And one of the big issues is that for a lot of younger people, myself included when I was younger, we work hard in school and we get good grades and we keep our heads down and, life is good. Your parents are proud of you. You're proud of yourself, which is more important anyway. Then what happens is you start working in the real world and you keep your head down and you do a great job and you figure, well, I'm going to get a raise or a promotion because they'll notice me. No. If you want to get a raise, you have to ask. If you want to get a promotion, you have to ask. If you want to get a date, you have to ask. I had to ask 8 billion times. Don't take dating advice from me. I suck at it. And my wife is way, way out of my league. Yeah. But you have to ask. And it's frustrating because you might start working and after a couple of years, you're like, why the hell is that dude getting promoted before me? I know more about this topic than that person does. I do a better job. I made the firm more money. That person asked. Nobody's ever made CEO of a company without asking many times along the way. Of course, there's tactful ways to do it, but it all comes down to networking as well. So when you join a company, you got to immediately find mentors by networking internally that can help you. And when you're the new kid in town, you start at a new company. You can do that in the first couple of weeks, especially. It's kind of like your first week or two of university in first year. You met a lot of friends and you're still friends with them today. It's kind of like that. If you want to get ahead in life, you got to network and find many, many mentors. And you can read my networking book because I teach you how to get many mentors and how to network to get a job, a customer, or anything you want. Your network is your net worth, and relationships are always more important than product knowledge. All right. Next question is from John, who's saying, how do you stand out in a presentation? The rule of 3, keep it short and simple and short. Yeah. And you're quoting one of my courses, my complete presentation course. So there's a great quote from Maya Angelou, which is, people might not remember what you said, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And so I think that what's often overlooked when it comes to presenting is delivery and trying to be different as well. And actually, I'll show you my rules that I came up with. It's called the Cider House Rules. All right, so let me get this sign here. All right, so first of all, this is my favorite quote. I had this done on Etsy. Michael Jordan said, I've failed over and over again in my life, and that's why I love it. But on the back here, and this is for my MBA degree students, whenever you present, you gotta be cognizant of the Cider House Rules. That's just what I call it. Cider stands for convincing. You have to be very convincing. You have to be interesting. You have to be edutaining, so to speak. Especially with social media nowadays, dude, it's tough to get attention. You got to be different as well. Okay, you got to be different, and you have to be edutaining, entertain the hell out of people, and educate them as well, so that they're learning by accident. And it has to be relevant as well. And so every bullet point you put on your slide, you got to ask yourself the Miles Davis test, which is 2 words: so what? And that's a great Miles Davis, God bless him, he's no longer with us, a great Miles Davis album years ago was called So What? Great song too. Is it relevant? Every bullet point you put down, ask yourself, so what? So what? Is it relevant? If you keep these Cider House rules in mind when you create your presentation, you'll do exceptionally well. Because I humbly believe that one speech by you can change your life. All right, let me just put this back. And I try to block this light here from that camera because it gets overexposed. The air quality's getting better, man. All right. Things are getting better. All right, next up, I've got Kokana, who's asking, I was watching the news last night about the fire in San Francisco. It looks scary with the sky changing color at 9:30 a.m. I hope everything is fine with you and your family. Thanks. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. And it was crazy. I mean, the sky looked like this color here, orange. It was, yeah, like apocalyptic or something. But the weird thing is that yesterday, when the sky looked like that, the air quality, it seemed like it was a lot better than it was in other days. Yeah, hopefully we get past this. What a year it's been. What a year. And some of the pictures you see of San Francisco, like, they've been a little bit manipulated. Like when people take pictures, they let in a little bit more light. So it looks a little bit more apocalyptic. But the best thing to do is, instead of looking at individual pictures, just look at videos as well, because they're not really manipulated. Yeah. All right. All right. Next up, Christian. Christian, hope all's well. You mentioned capitalism, if done right, can solve the world's problems. According to T. Piketty, capitalism is equal to owning capital. Do you have some negative examples of capitalism? Yeah. So I think that I'm a libertarian, right? And I'm definitely, I believe in, corporate Darwinism and, competition is good for the consumer, et cetera. But I think that pure capitalism, if it's not a little bit regulated, can be dangerous. And so I went to business school with a guy that worked. He's from Beijing, Kevin Chi, great guy. And I asked him. I said, growing up in communist China, did you study America and American history? And he said yes. I was like, oh, cool. What do they teach you? And he said, well, on the first day, they taught us about the Great Depression. It's interesting, eh? The first impression. And I think that communism, you can't go from communism to capitalism overnight. Otherwise, it's Russia. And that's not a critique on Russian people, but it is a critique on Putin. If you're going to go from communism to capitalism, which is a beautiful thing to go to capitalism, it's got to be done slowly. It can't be overnight. And China, up until recently, has done a great job of slowly transitioning. Since President Nixon, when I was a baby, went to China to help open the market. For my whole life, China's been going from communism to capitalism. That's a beautiful thing. Everybody wins. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, Reagan said. But with respect to the Soviet Union and communism. But what's scaring me is, for the first time in my life, China is not going towards capitalism. It's going back towards communism. And it's trying to oppress opinions and individual freedoms, which we saw in Hong Kong. And I'm not going to get too political here, but the latest movie on Disney, a lot of people are not watching it because one of the main stars of the movie said that what the Chinese government did with a police force in stopping freedom of speech in Hong Kong was the right move. So anyway, I guess we can all vote with our wallet. All right. And Manas is saying, thanks for the inspiration and help. You're most welcome. And then Manas wrote here, two pieces of good news from my side. Number one, the book is 100% complete, and I just completed the last chapter 5 minutes ago, thanks to you. And then number two, congratulations, by the way. Let me know, Manas, the name of the book as well. And no one's allowed to. I don't give out my address and stuff, obviously, but just tell me the name of your book so that I can go to Amazon and buy it and profile it on the air here, because I know you've worked hard on it. I do this with all of my students, and this is Phil Germany, his second book. He's Phil Germany the second, but this is his second book he's created using my free template that you can get from my website at harounventures.com/writebook, all lowercase. So yeah. And I have tons of students that have written books using my template. And it's such a good feeling to write a book too, right? Anybody can do it. It costs you literally nothing. Yeah. Okay. And then you wrote, I'm working on a secret project. And then I'm making my first Udemy course, and the shooting is 40% complete. Awesome, man. Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. It feels great when you hit publish. It's exciting. It's nerve-wracking too. Like, it's kind of, I feel like whenever I publish a course on Udemy, which is exciting, I love it. It's been a game changer and life altering. It's been fun. But when I do it, I kind of feel like, I'm the movie Ratatouille, when the film critic, or not the film critic, the restaurant critic, comes in to eat, and the mouse is or the rat, whatever, is the chef is nervous when it first comes out. It's that kind of nervous excitement I get when I release a course. You know, is it going to work? Do customers like it or not, and why? And by the way, if you want to make a Udemy course on any topic that I've taught, please go to my courses and you can sort the reviews. And I have over 100,000 reviews, but sort the reviews in each course and only look at the 1-star reviews and read all the critiques that you see on my courses so that you can make a better product, because competition is good for the consumer, which is the student, and we're all in this together. Everybody wins. Yeah. Gregory, it's been a while. Gregory is saying, hello, Chris. I hope you're doing well. And I always smile when I see your name. It's been a long time, 6 months, I think. But I smile when I see your name because it always reminds me of that character, Gregory, who's on the best business program on television now called Succession. You guys should check out the show Succession. It's great. It's incredibly well written, too. And that Gregory character is hysterical. Yeah. And I think it's kind of a play on Rupert Murdoch's family. Yeah. Not all of it's true, but it's entertaining. All right. Next up is Ashil. Hey, Ashil. Ashil saying, good morning, Professor. Hope you're doing great. Same with you. Thank you. Great to be here on the webcast. Thank you. It's fun, huh? And I tried today to do LinkedIn as well. And so I finally got approved for LinkedIn to be able to do LinkedIn Live. And so I believe in write once, read many, kind of like you create a course online and it sells in multiple platforms. And so the software I use for this YouTube call, I can also use for LinkedIn Live. And I applied 3 times and finally got accepted. So I was going to do it today, and I'll show you how. So what you can do is here within Wirecast, and Wirecast software it's amazing. It's incredible. It's the only one out there to use, or you can use OBS if you don't have the budget. But what you do is you go to output settings, okay? And it won't let me change it because we're live right now. That's fine. But what you can also do is right here, you can actually, I'm live right now on YouTube. This is the YouTube link here, okay? This here is LinkedIn Live. And I went live with it here. I tried. It said broadcast ready, and it didn't work today, unfortunately. There's an error message. So I'll try again next week. Probably user error. It's my fault, not LinkedIn's. But I'm excited I got approved on LinkedIn for doing it. Let me just hit refresh on LinkedIn to see if I'm live there or not. I don't think I am. Hold on a second. Refresh. Now, starting next week, we'll be live on multiple platforms at the same time. Yeah. And you can even do Twitch if you wanted to. And I asked my son, Matthew, who's making a lot of money actually streaming, playing Twitch now. I asked him, should I do it? And he's like, no, Dad, it's not. You don't teach about video games, so I probably won't do that. Yeah. I learn a lot from my kids. And for those of you that have kids or nieces, nephews, or buddies with kids, watch it how they consume media, because that's kind of a good indication of what's to come next. And your kids' jobs have not been invented yet, and neither has the way they're going to communicate with their buddies in the future. So there's a lot of great opportunities out there if you follow what the younger generation is doing. Yeah. All right. And then your question is that a camera on the shelf behind you? Yeah, it is. Yeah. So this here is, I changed the setup a bit here. So this here is an old camera, and it's really interesting. This is from the 1960s. It's an antique. It's interesting because if you look here at the way they designed it, there's 3 lenses, and that's exactly what the iPhone looks like on the back, there's probably going to be 4 lenses in the next release. You see that? It's really interesting. That's how they design it here, and you just turn it when you're filming. There's no audio in this, but it was just video back then, and that's how you get the different lenses. It's fascinating. And this dude here, whoops. Okay, this one here is an old camera, and they used to look down in them. This pops up as well. They look down in it. I don't know if I can open it, but whatever. Oh, here it is. They look down and take a picture this way. Yeah. So that's the way it used to be. Just an old antique I bought on eBay. It's kind of nice. Yeah. And every old product is heavy. It's like heavy metal. Yeah. Things are now usually hard plastic. Yeah. Okay. And then next up, Gerson is saying, good morning. How are you doing, Chris? Nice to see you again. I'm great, thank you. And thanks for joining us, bud. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, next up is Ricardo, who's saying, does anybody know how long these office hours will last? In other words, will he continue these weekly hours until the end of 2020? Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for asking, Ricardo. It's a 3-hour call. It goes from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. Every single Thursday. I rarely take a week off, but if Thursday is on December 25th, obviously I'm not going to do it. But I'll show you, and I'll never stop doing this till the day I die. Just like I vlog every day, and I will every day forever. And so if you go to my website, HarounEducation.com, you can go to weekly webcasts here, and you could see every single past webcast, all 105 of them. I fixed the lighting this week. Last week it was, oh wow, I wore the same shirt last week. Yeah, this is week 104. This year was week 103, and I did a Nintendo case study with my students that day. Yeah, but you can go all the way back to whatever, 105 weeks ago. The quality's gotten a lot better as well. Yeah, here's the first one. And when I did this very first one, there's nobody on the call.
All right, it's 8 o'clock a.m.
I was nervous.
I just want to say good morning and thank you for joining us today.
I look like Grover. But nobody was on for a while. So I actually had to have a little script and just, I don't know, say stuff, whatever. But it's been fun. Yeah. And for my MBA degree students, what I also do is I hold one-on-ones. And I do MBA student only office hours. And that's why I have that timer up there behind me. So what happens is I do one-on-ones for my MBA students on Thursdays. It's a timer, right? So basically it's 20-minute slots for my MBA degree students. And you get a couple hours of one-on-one time with me, either in person or over Zoom, which has been the case this year because of COVID, I guess. But that's why I have that there. Yeah. And after this call is done at 11 a.m., then at 11:15 for a couple hours, I have for MBA students only office hours, meaning for my gold and platinum students. And then I do the one-on-ones for a couple hours after that. So it's fun. Yeah. And by the way, within 24 hours of this call being done, what you can do is you can go to the description field of this video, and I get my team to put all the questions asked with clickable links to the times, so I could save you time. And I have thousands of questions I've answered, and we're starting to index them as well for an FAQ part of my website, which is all AI driven, which will be fun. Yeah. All right. Next up, Gregory is saying, how is the situation in California regarding fires, riots, etc.? Yeah. So it's getting, the air quality is getting a bit better where I live right now. Although, if you look outdoors, the sky's a little bit yellowish today. It was orange yesterday. It looked like something from, I don't know, the Mars atmosphere. So yeah, there's that. In terms of riots and civil unrest, we still have a long way to go, man. I mean, it's crazy. There's a teacher on Udemy that reached out to me. He's African American, and he lives close to Oakland, he mentioned. And he lives in an affluent neighborhood, and the chief of police is his neighbor. And every single week, he goes to the chief of police house, and they play poker. And quite often, the chief of police will invite other officers to play with them. And this guy told me, who's a very successful executive, that it's uncomfortable because he has a nice car and he gets pulled over all the time. And some of those police officers show up to that poker event. And then he gets to nicely, I guess, reprimand them, the chief of police, for what they've done. He gets pulled over all the time. Like it's ridiculous. It's fucking 2020, and we're still going through this. It's crazy. So we've come a long way, but we've got a hell of a long way to go. Yeah, and I believe that if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Yeah. All right. Next question is from C. Buse. Christian, I think is your name, right? Saying L.A. Noire was Rockstar's face research title. They have live facial scanning and movement. I remember that game came out like 06 or something, or 05? Maybe it was 04. I remember that. It was supposed to be like Los Angeles in the 1940s, some crime thriller. Yeah, I never got into it, but I'll check it out because I do love Rockstar's games. You know, the favorite IP of theirs by me is Grand Theft Auto, of course. GTA 5 rocks. Although my favorite one is Vice City from 2002. The soundtrack was 80s. I felt like Miami Vice. It was awesome. They should just port that to new platforms to make the graphics look better. And I also love Red Dead Redemption. So I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2 now still. And I feel like I'm in America in the 1800s, in the Wild Wild West. It's exciting. It's fun. And great character development too. Yeah. But I'm playing The Last of Us Part 2 still, which scares the hell out of me, man. Like when I play it at night, I have to have the lights on. Yeah. And I've got, I'm a nerd. I know. I get it. I play games. I'm like 80 years old. Who cares? But I have these older Sony 3D audio headset for when I'm playing The Last of Us Part 2. And dude, it is scary. It's a scary game, but a freaking masterpiece as well. Yeah. All right. And Manas is saying, I want some help from you. Sure. Some tips, like how should I price the book? Udemy has different price bars from $19.99 to $199.99. My course will be 3 to 5 hours, and I therefore want your advice. Yeah. And then you wrote, how did you price your first course? Yeah. I think it was an hour or too long. I took it down. I took down a lot of my older courses just because the ratings weren't as good as my new stuff. It's kind of looking at older albums by bands. You know, like the first Nirvana album wasn't nearly as good as Smells Like Teen Spirit or In Utero, their later stuff. So I think I put it at $199. And it got discounted, of course, that course. But I wasn't happy with the quality. The rating was under 4.5, and so I took it down. Yeah, and I took down about 10 of my earlier courses just because I'm doing a disservice to my consumers, my customers, my students, because it's not as good as the quality of my other courses. Yeah, yeah. But in terms of what to charge, it's tough. I would look at similar courses to yours and what they're priced at. Yeah. All right. Next up, Gregory saying, regarding personal computers, what do you think of the history of Dell? I think it's awesome. I think that Michael Dell, in his dorm room in Texas, he basically revolutionized the whole build-to-order business model. And so, as we all know, when you buy a Dell computer online, it hasn't been created yet, for the most part. You can customize it, you pay them, then they use the money you gave them to build it. So they never have inventory issues. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Yeah. And then Gabriella is saying, I love the digital frame you have in the background. I'd like to get it myself, one of those. What is the name of the product? Yeah, no, it's great. It's called the Mural, M-E-U-R-L, M-E-U-R-A-L, Mural. And the reason I'm opening my iPhone now, is because I want to look at TikTok. No, I'm just kidding. The reason I'm opening it now is I want to show you how I can change it, right? So the business model is great, actually. And finally, they made a screen that works with lighting without being overexposed. But it's got to be like, you got to look right at it, because if you look from this angle here, you could see it. You can see the glare from the lights up top there. I think every angle it sucks, except for straight on. They haven't perfected the technology yet to have a camera that works from every angle with a matte screen. But what you can do is you can subscribe and get any art you want. And you can also turn it into landscape mode. And of course, there's a lot more artwork in landscape than there is in portrait. But you can put up anything you want. And so what I do is, as you've probably all seen, in my room here, my studio, I have posters on the wall, motivational stuff, quotes from great people like Malala, which is hidden over there. And it got kind of expensive doing that every week and every class. And I changed the backdrop for every class I have in all 100 plus lessons for my MBA degree program. And so I figured it's a lot cheaper to get a backdrop like this to save money on it. And so you can do that. And let me see if I can actually show you some pictures from classes. Yeah. So for those of you, my MBA degree program, on Monday, what we're going to do is in the Sales, Marketing, and Communications class, semester 3, class number 4. All right, that's SMC, Sales, Marketing, Communication, semester 3, class number 4. We're actually going to learn about video editing, so you can take your social media presence to the next level and sell your products or services or yourself online. And the reason why I have these wonderful posters is because in lesson 1, and I have 3 lessons every class usually. So lesson 1 on Monday, I'm going to teach you about the basics of video editing based on mistakes that I've made and 10 rules on how to do great video editing. Then in lesson 2, I'm going to teach you from scratch for how to use Final Cut Pro. Okay. And these movies here were all made using Final Cut Pro. Okay. The editing. 300, The Social Network, and a Wolverine movie from 2009. Then in topic 3, meaning the third lecture on Monday, what I'm going to teach you is from scratch how to use Premiere Pro. From scratch, assuming you have no experience with it at all. And of course, Premiere Pro works on Windows and a Mac. And these 3 movies were made using Premiere Pro. Deadpool, one of the Superman Return ones, and the latest Terminator movie, which Jim Cameron came back to direct, which is awesome. So that's what we're doing. And so I change the backdrop all the time. And I just use Photoshop to make that image. And I send it wirelessly over to there. But since what we're doing today is, let me just go to the playlist. Since what we're doing today is the webcast, let me put up the weekly webcast one here. And this is, there's 3 images that cycle through here. One is my branding, my company. Shameless plug, sorry. And then I've also got just the webcast number and 3 images that cycle. Yeah. And I overdid it initially with too many images in the background. And one of my students, who I love, complained in a nice way. And the best customers you have are the ones that will give you feedback. Yeah. All right. There we go. 105 weeks. Isn't it cray-cray? It's amazing. And Netgear, which is the parent company that bought Mural, they make smaller versions as well of this. It's amazing. It's just incredible, these things. And I could change the brightness, make it way brighter or less bright. And if you put your, if there's a slideshow going on, if you put your hand at the bottom and you go like this, just swipe up in the air. I can't do it because the bowls are here. There we go. It'll tell you about the painting as well. And you can swipe left and right, whatever. Down, boy. Get down. All right. It'll go back. It'll go away soon, I think. Yeah. But it's fun. It's cool. Yeah. And the subscription service is genius too, because you can get great works of art from the best painters ever. Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. All right. All right. Next up, I've got, dude, it's killing me. I have to get rid of that. Hold on one second. Here's what I'll do. All right, sorry. But as Salvador Dali said, if you strive for perfection, you'll never reach it. So I'm going to ignore that for now. It's great. All right, give me 1 second. Time for breakfast. I put lots of acai into my antioxidant drink this morning. So, all right, hold on a second. All right. What do we have next here? Manas is saying, I want to give the course for as less as possible, but Udemy is restricting me. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah. So Udemy has policies, their own policies that we all adhere to, and they test the market out thoroughly. So from a data analytics perspective, they're spot on usually with what pricing to recommend. Yeah. All right. Next up is Emily, who's asking, hi, Chris. I hope you're doing well. Likewise. What are your thoughts on the current Fed bubble? Do you think we'll have zero interest rates for a long time? I do. I do. And once demand picks up materially and inflation kicks in, meaning prices go up, that's when they'll raise interest rates. And when prices go up a lot, it's usually a reflection that the economy is doing well and demand is robust. And that's when they raise interest rates to cool down the economy. And I criticize the Fed for not raising rates more in the past when things were great. Because if you don't raise interest rates when times are great, then when times suck, you don't have enough bullets in the chamber to cut interest rates to jumpstart the economy. Yeah. Okay, next question is, what if both Apple and Microsoft were forced to work together for a project like a phone or a laptop? Can you imagine the level of creativity that the project would have? Yeah. Well, I mean, there is co-opetition between the two, and there always has been. Microsoft has always made Microsoft Office available on the Mac as well. But I do remember a time in 1994 in the fall when Microsoft Office came out for Mac. And I remember I was excited. It was 30 disks, and I couldn't wait to load it all in the old days. And it was so slow. And a lot of people thought that Microsoft did that on purpose to sabotage Apple. And then from an antitrust perspective, what happened was in 1997, the DOJ was getting ready to kind of maybe within a few years, like Janet Reno, the district attorney at the time, to call Microsoft monopoly and make them break up into different companies. And so what Apple did was in 1997, they paid a couple $100 million to invest in Apple. And that was a lifeline to save Apple. And without it, Apple might have gotten bankrupt. And I remember that very well because that was when Steve Jobs came back to the company. And he gave one of his great presentations in his black turtleneck. And on the screen was Bill Gates' face, right? And he was announcing to customers of Apple what's happening. And it made Bill Gates, it was really uncomfortable. It made him look like an Orwellian figure. And everybody booed in the audience. But it did rescue, it did rescue Apple at the time. Yeah. But I do think that in terms of collaboration, I wouldn't want to see that because I do believe that competition is good for the consumer. Like I would hate to see Google and Apple work together on creating a single operating system because what would happen is innovation would die and prices would go up, which sucks for the consumer. Competition is a good thing for the consumer. But I do believe that in our lifetime, within 10 years or so, that we're going to see Amazon broken into two companies, and the same thing with Google, YouTube, and Google, because Google is number one search engine in the world. Number two is YouTube. Yeah, they'll be broken up. Competition is great for the consumer, and I think what Apple is doing is really unfair right now to Fortnite. It's not fair. They abuse, like I love Apple. Look, I use their products, but I'll call a spade, and I'm transparent as always. I don't think it's fair that Apple has their arcade gaming subscription service. It's not fair because they push it in your face and market it to you so that you end up subscribing to that instead of buying individual games. And you'll notice that innovation has died on the App Store. Initially there was a great new game every week. Field Runners came out, other tower defense games, and then it just died. And so Apple trying to muscle its way by promoting their own subscription service, That's not cool. That's not fair. I think they're abusing their monopoly power. And I'm with Fortnite. I believe that you should be able to accept micropayments and whatnot on the Apple platform within your game. It is so unfair. It's not fair. Yeah. So competition is good for the consumer. Yeah. All right. All right. Next up. Manas is saying, by the way, I saw in the BBC that there are a lot of wildfires on your side. I hope you're okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. No, it's the air quality is getting better. If the air quality is 50 or above, it's dangerous. And we have a bunch of purifiers here in my house. They look like little R2D2s. And right now, I checked this morning, it's 11. It got to 22 the other day. And you could smell it in the house. And so the kids slept in our room when it got bad because we have air conditioning in our room. Yeah. But it's getting better though. Thank you. Yeah. But God bless the firefighters that are working 24/7 to fix this. What a humbling year. Yeah. Next question is from Chung, who's saying, if you had to pick between the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times, which one would you pick and why? Yeah. Probably the Financial Times. And I'll tell you why. I find the Wall Street Journal it's a little bit too U.S. focused, whereas the Financial Times is a little bit more international. It's kind of like, would I pick CNN or BBC? I'd pick BBC because it's a little bit more global in nature. Yeah. That was not a liberal news, fake news comment there at all. I like being global. Yeah. All right. Next up, Manas is saying, thank you for answering my questions. I'm sorry, but if I irritate you a lot, no, dude, it's always great to have you, buddy. Please don't say that. Yeah. And you wrote, God bless you all. God bless you all. I got employed at Morgan Haroun Sachs, the world's #1 fake company. Yeah. And you said, can I include this in my LinkedIn page? Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah. I had a lot of fun making that course. But MHS is much better than Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs. Morgan Haroun Sachs is, you get both those brand names in one. Just kidding. Yeah. And I mentioned Goldman Sachs in my entire MBA course. And I remember it was when that course first took off, and Business Insider wrote about it and whatnot in 2016. I got called by Goldman Sachs, and I was like, oh my God, did I do something wrong? I didn't say anything bad. And so they said, we'd like to set up a call with you. And I remember I was nervous. I was like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. And I sat down and I was talking to them. They said they want to profile my course. And so they sent my course to, mention of my course, the article, to every single alumni of Goldman, which is pretty cool. They were good about it. They're good dudes. Yeah. Not the smartest people work there because they hired me, but they hired people that get along. All right. Next one is, do you have any idols in investing? If yes, who are they? Yeah. Warren Buffett, I certainly look up to him because he's very, very long-term focused. Not just because he's a great investor, but what's often overlooked about Warren Buffett is he's the quintessential communicator. And he can take complex stuff and make it easy and fun to understand. And nobody ever watches an interview with Warren Buffett on television and then walks away thinking, I'm confused. He's a great communicator. And that's one of the many reasons he's so successful. He gets great PR as well by just being asked his opinion. It's amazing. Yeah. And he's a good person too. From a civil rights perspective, you can do research on him back in the 60s on what he and his wife did. And they're good people. And God bless his wife. His wife passed away. Yeah. But Warren Buffett's 90 and still kicking ass. Love that guy. He's great. Yeah. In terms of what kind of investor do I classify myself? So Warren Buffett is a value investor, meaning he likes to buy stuff that's cheap. Whereas I'm a growth investor. I still love the guy. Whereas I like to buy stuff that's expensive today and growing fast. Yeah. It's just who I am. But when I was younger, and I remember Warren Buffett actually came to my business school and taught there, just one class, whatever, because he went to the same he went to Columbia as well. It's the only thing I have in common with him. Yeah, we both went to the same business school. But I was more of a value investor then. And that's what I learned in school. You know, hey, buy low, sell high, or buy cheap stuff. And I changed. I changed into a growth investor, probably because I worked in the tech industry. Yeah. All right. Let me just do a quick time check. We got about another 15 minutes to go. Okay. I think I got the lighting a bit better this week too. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. And I've got to do a quick pose. Sorry, but this is what happens. When you create a YouTube video, you have to do a pose so that later on you can take a screenshot to make your thumbnail. So you can do little things like points, right? So give me, I know it's out there, but give me a second. I just want to make it look good. Okay, I'll remember that. The time is 10:47, where I smile at the camera. That'll be my, yeah, okay. Not very photogenic, but that's okay. That's okay. All right, next up is Marin. Hey, Marin, is right. You wrote, good to hear from you. 2 questions. And you wrote, I teach entrepreneurship in Kenya in a school for the hard of hearing. Oh, very cool. Very cool. I'm actually building a school with one of my students, or for one of my students, named Vital, in Rwanda. And so I wired over a bunch of money recently, and we're building it. We're building it, yeah. And we hope to be finished by next year. Then I'm going to go there to Rwanda and teach a course there with Vital. And Vital, who's also my MBA degree program, he's a native French speaker. And so he and I are recreating the French version of my course, an entire MBA in one course. I'm going to try to speak French. My French is awful. It's franglais. It's French and English kind of mixed together. Yeah. But we're going to build mini schools in Rwanda. But you wrote here, I teach entrepreneurship in Kenya in a school for the hard of hearing. Is it okay if I use your course for sign language? Would you be able to explain also REITs in Europe? Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it. Good for you. You know what, man? Tell you what, if you want to make a version of my course, an entire MBA in one course, entirely in sign language, I'll let you do it. And I'll also let you keep 100% of the profits forever if it helps to open schools up and help the hard of hearing, etc. Yeah. Hell yeah, you can use it. Yeah. And all the profits go to you. Okay. Next up is, would you be able to explain REITs in Europe? Yeah. So REITs, for those who are not familiar, stands for Real Estate Investment Trusts. And it basically means it's like buying a stock, but it's a collection of real estate assets. And the law in most countries is that you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to package together a lot of real estate and sell it like it's a stock. But 90% of the profits have to be paid out in terms of a dividend. In terms of the REIT market in Europe, I'm not an expert in that area. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. And Gregory's saying, yeah, education while entertaining. Hell yeah, man. It's on my license plate. I should probably put that back in my car so I don't get a ticket. Screw it. No one's driving these days anyway, right? Yeah. All right. And then Gotham is saying Tesla uses $80 billion in a single day. Can you please talk about this? Sure. So what you're referring to is the market capitalization, the value of Tesla on the stock market. So the best way to explain what happened is to go back a couple of weeks when Salesforce, ticker CRM, was added to the Dow Jones index of 30 stocks. And you'll see why I'm talking about this with Tesla in a second. And so what happened was Salesforce went up materially, like over 20% in one day because of that when it was announced. And the reason why Salesforce went up is because there's a lot of ETF companies, meaning exchange traded fund companies, that sell products that are basically just a representation of an index. And so any index fund that didn't have Salesforce in that index for the Dow, they had to rebalance, there we go, by buying shares in Salesforce so that their index represented the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So that's why CRM or Salesforce.com went up a lot that day. In terms of Tesla, well, people usually know when the S&P 500 is going to rebalance, meaning add new companies to it and take out ones that aren't representative of the U.S. economy or U.S. markets. There's usually a date. People know when it's going to happen. And people thought that, oh my goodness, well, Tesla is certainly going to be added to the S&P 500. And so the stock ran up ahead of that because people thought, oh my God, this is a positive catalyst when they announce it. And then the froth that was built up into that stock went away immediately when S&P announced they're not going to include Tesla, at least not yet. And so that's what happened. Yeah. All right. But I don't believe in buying or selling stocks for short-term catalysts like that. You know, it's a recipe for bankruptcy. You know, I'm never a tourist in a stock. I don't rent stocks. I'm a long-term owner. Yeah. And it's a great thing that other people aren't that way because it creates volatility for us so that we can buy stuff on sale instead of, as Warren Buffett said, the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. If you like something, if it's cheaper, buy more. Yeah. So anyway. All right. Next question is, do you think that the next greatest in-demand profession is going to be corporate law? God, I hope not. I love civil rights lawyers. Let me just say that. But I don't think the world needs more lawyers in business. I believe in deregulation. I don't get along with lawyers at all. At all. And I mean, there's some of them that are great. Like if you're representing me, then I love you. But it's kind of like a taxi driver. You know, if you're late for a meeting and your taxi driver is aggressive, you love your cabbie. You love your taxi driver. But if you're cut off when you're driving by a taxi driver, you don't like that taxi driver as much. That's what I think about law in general. Yeah, it's a necessary evil. Again, I love you if you're a civil rights lawyer. And yeah, there are corporate lawyers I've met who are good people. Not many, but there are good people that work in corporate law. But I always think to myself, do you become an asshole after law school, or were you always that way before law school? Or does law school teach you to become that way? Please don't be offended by that. Yeah, if anybody's a corporate lawyer. Yeah. So, all right. Next up, the question is GDAX the same as Coinbase Pro nowadays? Yeah. So GDAX is the exchange for Coinbase. So Coinbase, for those who are not familiar with it, is a cryptocurrency wallet company. It's a hot wallet because it requires computers to be on to use it. You could store it on their website. And you can also use a mobile app for it as well. And Coinbase also owns GDAX, which is an exchange, kind of like a stock market, for which to transact currencies. And they keep rebranding it. So I guess the answer is yes, I think. Yeah. All right, Marin is saying, hey, Chris, would you please give us your opinion on target retirement funds, meaning ones in Vanguard? Please explain the difference between accumulation and dividend ETF funds. Sorry if it's too simple. No, please. Yeah. So I believe in always maxing out your 401k or whatever country people are in your retirement savings program, because you get to grow it tax-free. And then you pay taxes later when you take the money out, and it's worth a hell of a lot more. So I certainly believe in that. In terms of which funds to recommend, I don't do that. I'm so sorry. I feel like my role humbly is to teach my students how to fish instead of giving them a fish. Yeah. Always do your own research. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Next question is, good day, Chris. Hey, I went through the complete business plan course, but my problem is making projections of more than 1 year. How do I input that forecast? Yeah. So it's in there. So just go to the revenue forecasting tab, and then just forecast what you think revenue is going to be for the next 10 years. You know, it's there in the model for you. And when you forecast the future for financial statements, if you remember one basic rule, it's easy. That rule is that most items are percent of revenue. So just forecast revenue for those 10 years and make other items below that a percent of sales. Most of them at least, which I explain in the course. Yeah. All right. And Melody said, I wish YouTube would allow me to give thumbs up with what others say in the chat. Oh, that's interesting. It's a good idea, actually. Yeah. Yeah, they're always experimenting with things at YouTube or at Google. Their products are always in beta. Like, remember, Gmail was in beta for like 8 million years. But I could see on the back end they're making a lot of changes to YouTube for monetization. There's now merchandise, so I sell my stuff. It took me 10 minutes to set up, literally. So I sell merch. Just go to my YouTube store or whatever. And don't order it yet. It's all there because I want to order. I ordered it first to my house to see how it looks, to see if it's high quality. But anybody can do it. And when you order it, it then gets built and sent to you within 2 weeks. It's pretty cool. It's neat. It's like the Michael Dell model for clothes. All right. And let me do a time check. Yeah, we got about 3 more minutes, guys. And if I don't answer your question, then please just copy it, please, and then paste it next week in the call. Or if you're my my MBA degree program students in my Platinum program or Gold, then at 11:15 we have MBA office hours today. And then after that, I've got one-on-ones as well, which is why I have this clock behind me here. We do 20-minute one-on-ones. Yeah, so yeah, it'll be fun. All right. Next up is Van is saying, I received a proposal of a large federal tax credit as tendered to my joint venture with my disaster recovery mission. Can you advise whether to find FTC experts to structure and possibly monetize it? Yeah. So when it comes to this sort of thing, I recommend talking to a lawyer that would understand this. And I'm going to tell you exactly where to go, okay? Especially when it comes to getting relief. And if anybody's accidentally received relief or a stimulus check from the government and you don't need it, please send it back. Please send it back, yeah. Let me actually show you. Oh, I can use pedals, I guess. So what I recommend you do is go to LegalZoom.com. I don't get comped by this or anybody. I will never sell out to anybody. Okay. I want to be transparent and open always. So you can go to this website and speak with any type of attorney you want. It'll cost you $15 for a half-hour call. And I think there's a 6-month subscription. But it's definitely worth it. And I've done a lot of my trademarks and copyrights using this website as well. So I recommend going to this website, navigating it, and then asking just for advice from a real lawyer. Yeah, yeah. And Jason wrote, "Hello, Chris. Jason, I hope you're well, man. I hope you're well." And Jawad, hope you're doing well. And I miss my friend Jawad Nabulsi. He's on my board, great guy. He was one of my students when I guest lectured at Stanford years ago. Good dude. So Jawad Irfan is saying, which marketing book do you recommend? Yeah. So I don't think there's really any one particular marketing Bible out there. I would just tell you to read every book ever published by Seth Godin. And he's the best business teacher on Udemy. He's great. He and Evan Kimbrell. Yeah. So just do a search for Seth Godin and read his marketing books. They're great. They're great. And he's a straight shooter too. Yeah. And he's inspirational too in his own way with his quotes. My favorite Seth Godin quote is, "You already have everything you need to build something far bigger than yourself." All right. Next up, Jawad is asking, in your financial analyst course, you teach to use IMF data, but it's not available for Pakistan. Is there any solution? Yeah, it should be available. There should be data for all countries because the IMF stands for the International Monetary Fund. It should be there. If it's not available on the website I provided you with, which is the official IMF website, I'm sure you can do a search and find data in other sources. It might be through the World Bank's website as well. Oh, that's my alarm. Okay, great. All right, guys. So I am going to have to wrap up the call because I've got my MBA degree program, Gold and Platinum students, office hours and one-on-ones. So I want to thank you all for your time. If I did not answer your question, then please just copy and paste it next week. If you're in my Platinum or Gold program, just copy the questions and ask me in 15 minutes on our next call. Otherwise, God bless you all. Have a great weekend. And I will see you next Thursday and every Thursday forever at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you.